Hello, welcome to the show, everybody. Oh. Another day, another dub. That's what they say. I don't know if that's true, though. Another day, another dead black teenager is what we really should say. Hey, Black Butter Crunch. I remember you. It's been so long. You haven't been in here in forever, I feel like. I'm back from outer space. This is ground control to Major Tom. You really made the grave. It's weird. You think about it, there's actually a lot of songs about being up in space. I packed my bags last night, pre-flight. 0 hour, 9 a.m. And I'm gonna be high as a kite by then. I think I'm getting the lyrics wrong on that, actually. She packed my bags last night, pre-flight. 0 hour, 9 a.m. And I'm gonna be high as a kite by then. No, I got it right. I miss the earth so much. I miss my wife. It's lonely out in space on such a time. Anyway, I'm just waiting for enough people to get in here for us to get started. Just waiting for enough people in here to get started. Dude, somebody just said something about Trump turning America communist. You realize that communist doesn't mean like when government does bad things, right? Like communism is a specific thing that refers to a specific set of economic theories and ideas about how the world should be ran. It's not just like a catch-all term for whenever the government does stuff you don't like. If you want to talk about government overreach, there's a phrase for that: authoritarianism or government overreach, depending on how bad it is. Communism is worse than Nazis. Name one country where communism has ever been allowed to actually come to power. And don't name the Soviet Union, because that was a state capitalist hellscape. Magas name a communist country. Challenge level, impossible. China? China's not a communist country. They call themselves communist, but the United States calls itself united, and how fucking united are we? The Klan calls itself the White Knights of the Ku Klux Klan. Should we give them armor and swords? The Nazis called themselves the National Socialist Workers' Party of Germany, despite the fact that they allied with industrialists, created a fascist economy where private enterprise was heavily controlled and interloped with the state, massively oppressed trade unions, massively oppressed communists and socialists, and sent them to the same concentration camps they were sending Jewish people. So, let's get past this idea that a country calling itself something actually tracks exactly to what it does. It's kind of like how America calls itself a democracy, but really we've been kind of like trying and struggling to make something that somewhat resembles democracy for most of our history. Benjamin Netanyahu approved? I doubt it, since I'm a fucking big old Israel hater. Really doubt Benjamin Netanyahu or any of his cronies enjoy the fucking existence of this channel, or most other leftists, considering that we oppose the existence of Israel in its current form. Do you support the Second Amendment? I support the Second Amendment more than Donald Trump does. Donald Trump hates guns. Go look at his record. Before Donald Trump started running as a Republican, he was literally a Manhattan Democrat, okay? So he was a centrist, moderate Democrat, hated guns, like most CEOs do, funnily enough. Most CEOs and big, powerful, billionaire politicians and shit, they might use gun rhetoric in here in America, you know, to get their points across. They might try and use that, and they use it less and less nowadays because they've been able to find other social issues to make it about. But like, they don't actually care. They don't like these things. They don't like the fact that guns exist in such high numbers in America. CEOs literally hate it that the average American can walk around armed. Listen, if CEOs and rich people really fucking like people having guns and as many as they want and carrying them around openly, why don't they live in the Deep South? It'd be a lot cheaper for them. It'd be way cheaper. Way more land down here. Way more people to exploit. You can exploit them for way lower wages then. Like, so why don't they do it? Well, there's a couple reasons. One is climate. The other, safety. Safety. They know rednecks got guns. And city folk, for the most part, if they got guns, are not, you know, carrying them around openly and are certainly not as apt to use them in a fit of violence. And more civilized places also have more civilized people. The South, being a pretty uncivilized place, has tons of people that roam around with guns that they probably shouldn't have, shooting at things that they probably shouldn't shoot at, and brandishing them at moments when they really don't need to be brandished. Your teeth are gross? Well, if you don't like looking at my teeth, why don't you go find somebody else to watch? I don't know how late it is right this second, but I guarantee you there's tons of people streaming right now on live that you could go watch. And I bet you they might have some pretty ass white shiny veneers for you to look at instead of like paying attention to what the fuck they're saying. You boy or girl? I'm a girl. I'm more fearful of culture, not color. What exactly are you worried about when it comes to culture? There's a few cultures that I know for a fact that I wouldn't want to see proliferating farther than they have. For example, fundamentalist, white Christian nationalist culture. Yeah, I don't want that shit proliferated. I don't like the idea that if you were born with a vagina, that means that you should, for the rest of your life, have to abide by a dress code that includes wearing dresses that come down to your ankles and wearing long sleeve shirts so that The minimum of your body can be seen. People love to talk, especially Christian fundamentalists and Christian nationalists here in America, love to talk about how people in the Muslim world oppress their women. But what they don't want you to notice is how people in America do the exact same thing at fundamentalist Baptist churches all across this country. Walk into a Pentecostal church and notice how those women are dressed. Those people want Sharia law here. Yeah. So there's lots of cultures I can think about that I don't want to proliferate, but usually they're not associated with color at all. You'll never pass? I pass so well that most people in public don't even realize I'm trans until I say something. Like, that's just the experience that I have, so it's letting you know. We are doomed? What a useless comment. Thank you for not adding anything. I appreciate that. By the way, I've got a little deal for you guys. If the people who love this channel and want to see us have good conversations want to, you guys can by donating $50 or more, or by donating 10 memberships or more, one of the two, $50 or 10 memberships. If you do one of the two, we will turn members only mode on right then. If not, it'll be the regular standard 1 hour until members only mode, and you'll just have to deal with it. You are a disgrace to the liberal party. I'm not a part of any fucking liberal party. I don't identify with the Democrats because the Democrats have abandoned me and other leftists. They are racing to the right in an effort to pick up more conservatives. So I don't identify with the liberal party in America, if you mean the Democrats. If you mean some other party, you might have to explain it to me, and maybe I would look into it, because I don't know. I don't see a whole lot of political organizations operating in America at a national level right now that have anything like a leftist platform that I also think are, like, capable of winning elections. Like, I think the Green Party probably has a pretty leftist platform, but I don't think it's capable of winning a national election. I'm going to have to turn on subs only mode, kill some of these spam bots off, I think. Let's see here. One of the things I wanted to talk about at the very beginning of the stream, now that we've got some people in here, once I get slow mode turned on. Let's see here. Do 20. There we go. So yeah. A black teenager went missing on Horn Island in the Gulf Coast of Mississippi, right off Mississippi, on July 4th. His body was found on July 6th after like a day and a half of searching and him being missing for 2 full days. There are basically no answers that are coming out of the sheriff's department or the coroner's office or any of the official agencies that are tasked with providing transparency in a big investigation like this. And the fact that there is just like no clear witnesses to what might have happened, and like so here's the thing, we've got more questions than answers, and it's one of those situations where it really should be pretty cut and clear and dry, right? So if it's a drowning, that should be pretty easy to tell. They should have been able to tell that already, and should have been able to provide an update and be like, yeah, it seems like he drowned. We're currently looking into and trying to see if that might have been connected to a fight or something, or if he just like fell off a boat and couldn't swim back, right? There are questions about why these institutions that are all responsible for providing this transparency are so reticent to provide any details. And I think it speaks volumes to the veracity of this case possibly being a murder that is being swept under the rug by Mississippi authorities. Ben Crump, long-standing, pretty well-known civil rights attorney for black people, black civil rights attorney from Jackson, has taken up their case. They've raised 220 grand, I think, in their GoFundMe. Donate to that. I got some extra bucks, by the way. We need to find out what happened here. If it genuinely was just an accident, if it genuinely was just some kind of mistake or something like that, then awesome, great. Help prove that Mississippi is not as racist as people think. But the fact that black people keep going missing or dying in conspicuously weird ways in Mississippi, and the authorities, which are typically white, just keep sweeping it under the rug and acting like nothing's happening, it's starting to get a little fucking weird. as a woman who grew up hearing, because I'm from Mississippi, I live in Mississippi right now, and as a woman who grew up in the Mississippi education system, grew up in the Deep South, grew up hearing about police officers and police institutions that were tightly involved with the KKK and that were deeply ingrained, like, racist nationalist fucking bullshit into their training and into the way that they profiled communities and policed communities. With that knowledge in my head, I can't look at this developing pattern and see anything but it seems like racist authorities in Mississippi might be starting to act up again, a la good old boys club bullshit, getting black people, like, not getting black people killed necessarily. Some of that I'm sure is going on in the criminal justice system, but like literally making it so that black people are less likely to receive the same kind of justice that anybody else in this state would receive. And one of the main reasons I'm talking about this is because no other leftist creator on YouTube is. Apparently no other leftist on YouTube cares enough about their, like, virtue signaling leftist bullshit to actually talk about it when it matters, like when black teenagers are going missing in a fucking state well known for its racist policies and the integration of racist policies and ideas and institutions into its police and fucking and bureaucracies. You're the first person I heard talk about this. This shit sounds scary as fuck, not gonna lie. Look it up. His name is Nolan Wells. There's lots of news organizations talking about it, but like almost no lefty creators. And I think that is because so much of the bread tube space, so much of the left tube space has become about just making as much money as you can, just staying as famous and relevant as you can. It's not about actually being good advocates or activists for the cause. It's not about actually making people's lives better, I think, for a lot of people. It's just fucking clout chasing at this point. So I'm talking about it because nobody fucking else will. Nobody else will. It's not profitable enough to talk about Nolan Wells. Well, fuck it. I don't give a fuck if I make a single dollar on this stream. I'm talking about Nolan Wells. Yes, justice for Nolan Wells. Let me get a hashtag justice for Nolan in the chat. I don't care who you are or what political ideas you got, unless you're a fucking Nazi, you should be advocating for justice to be done in this case and for full transparency to be provided by the authorities in Mississippi. Because this shit cannot be allowed to stand. Mississippi is one of the worst states for this shit in the Union. Right up there with fucking Arkansas and Louisiana insofar as its output of racist bullshit over the last 400 years. Hashtag justice for Nolan. Fuck yeah, fuck yeah. Can I see a vid of your father saying he's proud of you? Even if I showed you guys a video of my dad saying he was proud of me, you guys would just say it was AI. Even if I did show you guys like an obviously non-AI video of some old man and in the place where I live saying that, what proof would you have that it's my fucking dad? Me and my dad don't look alike. I look more like my mom. So... yeah, but there are videos on this channel of my mom saying she's proud of me. I've had her on stream a couple times. Not that it matters much to me. Like, honestly, I've always thought it was kind of strange how much people focus on whether or not their parents are proud of them, because you've got no fucking control over that. You can't control their emotions. Even, like, and, like, here's the thing. I know kids who were way overachievers because their parents were just never proud of them and nothing they ever did was good enough. And a lot of them end up getting burnt out after a certain amount of time. Some of them end up becoming fucking homeless because they are just so fucking sick of having to reach to the super high standard and it never being good enough. And so it starts to seem just completely pointless and everything. But I really think that our culture could benefit, and a lot of cultures could probably benefit from, like, teaching people that what is more important than your parents being proud of you is you being proud of you. You. And what's more important than pride in general, or maybe not more important than pride, but like I think more important than pride in oneself is pride in what you do, right? So like find something that you really value and contribute to it, and you'll feel better. Like, I don't know. You can keep asking the Jesus question, but all you're going to be doing is adding to this atheist's engagement, because I am not going to answer your simple, blighted Jesus question. You want to ask me about some specific theology? Fine. But I don't believe that Jesus Christ was the Son of God. I don't even know if Jesus Christ as one distinct historical entity existed. But I know that if he did exist, he certainly was not divine in nature, was not magical, was not the Son of God, or any of the other absurd claims he makes. But interestingly, one thing he was that a lot of Christians like to ignore in furtherance of judging alcoholics and drug users in the modern day was a regular consumer of alcohol. Fun fact. Yeah. Jesus loved wine. In fact, he mentions it specifically. Let me find the verse real quick. He mentions it specifically. So yeah, in Matthew chapter 11, verses 18 to 19, it says, quote, "For John came neither eating nor drinking, and they say, he has a demon. The Son of Man," meaning Jesus, "came eating and drinking, and they say, look at him, a glutton and a drunkard, a friend of tax collectors and sinners. Yet wisdom is justified by her deeds." And Luke chapter 7, verses 33 to 34 says, quote, "For John the Baptist has come eating no bread and drinking no wine, and you say, quote, he has a demon," end quote. "The Son of Man has come eating and drinking, and you say, quote, look at him, a glutton and a drunkard, a friend of tax collectors and sinners," end both quotes. Damn. Guess you can't fuck on me for smoking anymore, huh? Well, I'm sure you'll find some other liturgical justification. Bro is full of satin. Is it high value satin? Am I stuffed with good satin? Or am I stuffed with like cheap satin from China? Margot, member for 9 months. Look at that awesome members on message. Justice for Nolan Wells, justice for Tamla Harsford. This cannot keep happening in our country. Justice for Nolan Wells, justice for Tamla. Yeah, 100%, Margot. I agree with you. Yeah, look into the Tamla Harsford case too, because that shit's weird as well. Like, ruled an accidental death, but it just seems very fucking strange that, I don't know, it just seems like a very strange coincidence that out of this group of like 12 women, it's the black girl who dies in this weird like accidental thing, and everybody, I don't know, it just seems like a situation where you would have expected a lot more transparency. That one happened longer ago, and I haven't done as much reading on it, so I don't know if I want to comment on it much further than that, other than to say that I think the case should probably be re-examined. But when it comes to Nolan Wells, this is an ongoing investigation that they are choosing not to be transparent about, that they are choosing to be obstinate about. The behavior of the Mississippi authorities is making it seem as though they are trying to cover up a murder, a hate crime, possibly, committed against a black teenager that was apparently pretty popular in his school, in his area, and everything. Why? Why are they doing that? Are they afraid it would hurt tourism? Are they afraid it would fucking make them look more racist? Are they afraid? Like, either way, it doesn't justify it. So let's come on here. Like, let's have some transparency. Let's have some actual fucking investigative verisimilitude. But I doubt very seriously that we'll see either of those things out of Mississippi, of all places. What's up, Taylor? Fucked up part is I don't even, let's see, I don't even just trust a federal agency to investigate it, but maybe I need to touch grass. There are still competent people working within the FBI. There's always competent people working within these institutions throughout every administration. It's just like how many of them are left after the purges. That's what you have to worry about. And yeah, right now I would not necessarily trust Trump's FBI to provide a good outside look at this, but maybe they would. I don't know. What I know is that we need oversight that is not being provided. And it does kind of seem like, based on the fact that the Trump regime is itself so racist, it seems like it's basically falling on the consciences of the people in that administration. It's falling on the consciences of the people who are involved in the bureaucracy that is heading up the investigation into Nolan's death. They are choosing, for reasons unbeknownst to me and everyone else, to be obstinate and quiet about this. And they're acting in ways that make it look very shady. What is your opinion on climate change and the way the government handles it? I hate it. I hate the way all governments handle climate change, because I don't think that we are actually united as a species in combating what is perhaps the greatest existential crisis to human life. Not even kidding. Like, there's a lot of animals that will be able to adapt. There's lots of animals that will go extinct because of it, but there's animals that will adapt because they've already been living in ways that were kind of like subject to nature's fluctuations. And human beings are not so, we are not so made. Human beings have evolved a completely different set of survival tactics, and the same exact thing that enables us to live across the planet is about to fuck us in the ass whenever we see the tragic effects of climate change make so many of our cities uninhabitable, make so many of our traditional typical foodways unsustainable or untenable. It's going to require like a complete reshuffle in how society works and in how things go, and it's not going to be anything that anyone opts into, sadly. I wish it could be that. I genuinely believe we can do that. I just don't think we're going to. But I think that if we tried right now, like if every country on the planet basically got together and was like, okay, we will not produce single-use plastics anymore, period. We are going to massively ramp up plastics recycling and offer huge initiatives to clean up and recycle plastic of all different kinds. And we're going to make it so that we start like targeting these forms of pollution that make it more and more difficult for us to actually handle this problem. And while we're doing that, we are also going to start transitioning away from oil in a serious way. We're going to start building massive fucking solar collectors in every place we can. We're going to start replacing big old fields of fucking corn being grown just for ethanol with solar fields, and we're going to let cows and sheep graze below them. We're going to fucking start implementing hydro in more places where it's able to make sense. We are going to transition away from oil. We're going to do this as a fucking, as a civilization, right? If we did that within the next 10 years, we would avert the worst of it. I believe that. I think we could avert the worst of it and set our society up to live through what we could not avert. But we're not. We're not. China's slowly starting to move towards a more sustainable energy model. But they're also a very big country, and that's going to take them a pretty long time. America is not even attempting to move away from unsustainable methods of energy generation. We're stuck with oil and slowly but surely building up more nuclear and solar resources. Every so often, new hydro gets built, but that really hasn't happened in any significant amount since like the 80s, basically. It's not looking real good for America. And Western Europe, they've been doing lots of stuff in that regard, but it's not enough. You need places like South America, Australia, Africa, India, Russia, and you need them all cooperating on this if we are to avert the worst of the changes that are going to be coming due to climate change, or if we are to survive what we cannot avert. Yeah, Technology Connections does have a really good video on solar. If you want to learn more about why it is such a, way more smarter, it's a way smarter way of generating energy than pretty much anything else we've got, just look at Technology Connections video about it. the main limit to solar power is really pretty much like how much space you can dedicate to it. And there are proposed technologies to even reduce how true that is. Like these big solar collector things. I forget what they're called, but they're basically like, instead of having like a giant field of solar panels, you've got like a circular array of mirrors that direct their light onto this convex mirror, or concave, I think, that directs all of its energy and light into a boiler, which produces steam, which generates electricity through the spinning of a turbine. They're looking at technologies like that, which would generate a ton more electricity than the same amount of solar panels in the same area might do. There's also the idea of, like, honestly, like, there are buildings that are designed that you could fucking probably line most of the sides of them with solar and get, a measurable benefit from that. But either way, yeah, like, there are way more efficient ways for us to generate electricity, whether you're looking at the material cost or the labor cost or whatever. Solar is cheaper. I like your shirt. Thank you, Paradox. Isn't the bigger issue energy storage for overnight power when demand is high? Increasingly less so. Increasingly less so. So if you're in a hilly area and you're trying to build a power system that will work with solar and still have energy available overnight, and you're in a hilly area, pumped storage is probably going to be massively increasing in its implementation. Now, hopefully, they learn from the fucking lessons and mistakes of the building of the Tom Sauk Reservoir. You guys can look into the Tom Sauk Reservoir disaster if you want to learn a little bit about how fucking how bad oversight and bad construction practices can lead to a whole bunch of devastation. Literally happened 30 minutes away from where I grew up in Missouri. Horrible fucking disaster. But yeah, hopefully they figure out ways to do it that are better than that. I mean, they rebuilt that facility and it's been running fine ever since. So anyway, then there's been no subsidence as far as I know. God, I hope they're inspecting it regularly. Anyway, so pumped storage is one of those things you should look into for particular solutions. It's a way that you can basically take the excess of electricity that's being generated during the day. You can use some of that power to pump water up to the top of a mountain or the top of a hill, and then at night, when power demands are a lot lower and also your outputs from the solar panels are a lot lower, you can, or non-existent, you can put that water back into the energy cycle through, like, basically the same pumps that fucking pumped it up the hill now reverse their role and become turbines, and then the water flows back down. And it's actually a really cool process, but that's one of the options, right? Pumped storage is one of them. Another one is, what is it called? Flywheel storage, which is this idea that there's a few of them in Ireland, there's a few of them in other places too, where you basically have a massive, just an absolutely absurd flywheel that just weighs a ton, and energy is used to spin it up to get it started, right? Or after it gets used for its purpose. Energy is used once the system is fully online and back at full capacity to spin it up, and it gets to its full RPM, and then at night when it needs to take over, then the motor becomes a generator and it delivers that electricity back at a rate that is controlled by the controller technology and shit to send it back at the right fucking, I can't think of the word, the right frequency. But yeah, it's really cool technology. There are other options besides batteries, contrary to many people's belief, but it's not nearly as much of a problem as people think. Not only that, but what I would argue is that in a really good system where you had the availability to do some pumped storage, some hydro, some solar, and maybe some nuclear, then you would have more than enough generation to allow for growth in the future, plus to accommodate the needs that fluctuate throughout the day and night. Yeah, there's no need to announce your question. Ask your question. If she sees it, she will answer. Yeah, literally, that's how it works. And if I'm not seeing your question, the best way to get me to see it is by sending a super chat. I know it sounds cheap of me, but that's literally how we pay for the existence of this channel. This is a full-time job for me. I do my best to provide like between 2 to 6 hours of content a day for you guys. And I don't think it's asking a whole lot that if you really want a question to be seen and I'm not seeing it, pay $5 and maybe I'll see it. What's your opinion on people who deny science, example, evolution, climate change, flat earthers? My mom denies climate change exists despite living in Oregon where we get badly compared to other states. I think it is a predictable result of America focusing less and less on good education and more on just making sure that people understand just enough to run the machines and work the paperwork. I think it's also a predictable result of like allowing American culture to become kind of anti-intellectual and kind of obsessed with pseudoscience, right? There are things that people have participated in over the last 50 years that have directly or indirectly led to us becoming a less intelligent society. And it's starting to infect all kinds of different people, some of which used to believe in it, some of which, never did. And it's something that I think has to be responded to by the proliferation of more people speaking the truth and telling people what's actually in these papers. Like, that's the answer. Like, more people like me, more people like Jimmy Snow in The Line, more people like Matt Dillahunty, more people like The Amazing Atheist, more people like fucking Paul Zico, more people like Gutsick Gibbon, more people doing like debunks and shit, more people talking about why the stuff that conservatives and MAGA people and billionaires and their acolytes say is bullshit. The proliferation of that kind of content is, I think, the best weapon in our arsenal against the rise of pseudoscience and anti-intellectualism. Is this how I ask a question? Sarcasm. Yes, Paradox, that is indeed how you ask a question. Thank you for the $2. This sick ideology needs to stay away from schools to children, from schools in children. What? There are no schools in children. I don't know where you think schools are at, but they're not inside children. You boy or girl? I'm a girl. Your question isn't going to show up because nobody's going to approve that chat, which will get filtered by YouTube every time. Imagine you are such a fucking moron that you can't even manage to quack out a question without it. Like, imagine you're such a racist or bigoted moron that you can't even manage to quack out a question on the YouTube chat without it getting auto-filtered by the YouTube AI mod. That's insane, dude. How do you feel about Graham Platner? Well, I feel like an idiot for supporting him as long as I did and doubting the accounts of people who'd come out against him. I can tell you that much. I feel like I was trying to be pragmatic and be like, yeah, he's probably not like the greatest guy ever, but we need that Senate majority, and it doesn't seem like any of these accusations are so harsh as to make me feel like he's some fucking horrible rapist. Seems like he's just kind of like an average cis dude in America with a bad understanding of consent, but after the last allegations that just came out, and the verisimilitude behind them, and all the things that fucking Politico and these news organizations were able to get a hold of, it seems like that it's a little worse than that. In fact, it seems like it's a lot worse than that. And I think that he knew, probably, that he was going to get stuff like this that could come out, and I don't think that, like, if he did that one time, it's hard for me to imagine that he's never done it. Like, even if the account, like, because in Jenny's account, she says that Graham told her the next morning that he had no memory of the incident. And that may well very be true, that Graham did indeed not have any memory of it, but that's not an excuse or a defense, right? And it actually makes it more worrying. He might have done shit like that before or since when he was blackout drunk. So I think that it's good that he dropped out. I hope that we can either get Troy Jackson to take his place, or who was the other guy? The other guy had, what was his name? Nirav Shah. Yeah, so, Nirav Shah is, I think he was running for governor, but he might end up running for this Senate seat now that it's opened up. He's like a way centrist, moderate Democrat kind of dude, but he does support Medicare for all, and he does agree that Israel's committing a genocide and that he would vote to not send any money to Israel. So that's better than a lot of centrist moderates in his same position. Troy Jackson is like actually like a labor leader and a populist and shit like that, which makes him better in a lot of ways, but he's been conspicuously silent in a lot of ways too about Israel until like the last little bit. So that kind of makes me like, I'm going to see what the vibe is, I think, before I throw my weight as a content creator behind either of them. Plus, I don't exactly know which of them is actually going to end up getting the nod or getting the support of the people of Maine. And in my opinion, that's what matters more than my little fucking shitty opinion from down here in Mississippi. The way that the establishment Dems have handled the Platner situation feels like a bit of a coup. They've been very sussy about how they want to move forward. I agree, but I also feel like it's one of those situations where it's like there's really no option for it. It sucks, right? I agree with you that it sucks. I agree with you that our low number of options sucks, but what else are we going to do but say, nah, this is too much? Like, I feel like the effects of the choice to keep going with Platner, despite this news story, despite the claims that have come up, and despite the biggest thing of all, the vibes, I feel like that decision would just serve to make leftists look even dumber than they do in the mind of the average American already. And I don't think that that reputation is justified, but I do think we might have justified it a little bit if we continue supporting Graham Platner even after all this. Like, ultimately, politics at the end of the day is a vibes game, and the vibes are no longer on Graham Platner's side, even if the facts weren't, and the facts appear to be not on his, or I'm sorry, even if the facts were, and the facts also do not appear to be on Graham Platner's side. It seems like he almost certainly raped somebody when he was blackout drunk, and it seems pretty certain to me that that is pretty easily verified, that he might have engaged in behavior like that, or similar to that, or adjacent to that at times since or before. And I feel like the vibes being against them in combination with that means that it's just kind of like political suicide at this point. To be like, yeah, I feel like this is all an op and a coup, so I'm just going to support him anyway. Yeah, we have to maintain some decorum, exactly. What was your opinion on Trump renaming the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America last year? Very late, I know, sorry. Don't worry about it. I don't really give a shit. I don't care what the fucking Gulf of Mexico or Gulf of America is named. I'm not going to call it the Gulf of America because that's just, it doesn't roll off the tongue like Gulf of Mexico does. You know? Like, Gulf of America requires like a harder pronunciation of the of. Like the F and the of, it requires harder pronunciation in Gulf of America. Whereas if you just say Gulf of Mexico, you can basically just turn the of into an A. People blaming DNC for Platner are delusional. Why would they give themselves no time to find a replacement? Yeah, not only that, I agree with you, Paradox. I hope you know I'm not blaming the fucking DNC for Platner. Like, I mean, like, I think there might be some culpability in that they, who was her name? Mills? There might be some culpability in the party leadership trying to throw their weight so hard behind Mills instead of just allowing the fucking primary to happen however it happened. Because I think that, like, the DNC putting all their weight behind, I'm getting their names. Was it Mills or Collins was the one that was Graham's opponent in the primary? But let me see. Let me make sure I'm thinking of the right person. Yeah, okay, I was right. So, yeah. Yeah, so I think if the DNC hadn't thrown all their weight behind Janet Mills, then there's a pretty good chance that that a bunch of weight wouldn't have been thrown behind Platner. It's hard for me to imagine a world in which people would have felt such a visceral, like oppositional, like we gotta find the exact opposite to this fucking shill kind of reaction had the DNC just kind of kept their hands off it and been like, you know, we do need this win in Maine, but it kind of looks like we're probably going to get it anyway. Let's just fucking really fucking campaign generally for leftist and progressive policies in that area. I really think the DNC, like as an organization, if they were actually interested in winning or improving things for the American people, which I don't believe they are, but if they actually were, they could do so much better for themselves simply by advocating for generalist leftist policies in these areas and by, like, you know, treating themselves as more of a subversive political organization. Like, they could do more, way more, I think, by doing that kind of thing than they do with these, like, targeted, like, we're going to select this candidate and try to bless them with our support kind of tactics. I just feel like it literally hardens people's hearts against the DNC and participation with it. Sounds like there aren't many good picks for Maine. No, not in this election. No, it's basically, insofar as like good picks for the Maine Senate race, it's like between Nirav Shah, who is like a technocrat, basically centrist, moderate, supports some good things that are like progressive policy agenda items, but in general, not my preferred candidate. And Troy Jackson, who is not exactly a great pick either, because it's a little shady as to how he has gotten some of his funding, and like the Israel thing again. I don't like know if he's come out and made more specific statements since the last time I looked into it. The last time I looked into it, Troy Jackson hadn't been nearly as clear, even as Nirav Shah, about the genocide going on in Palestine and about our need to divest from Israel, which makes me like, fuck, you know. But I guess we'll just have to see. Well, damn, I'm proud of us, though. We've covered everything in the title almost, except for the Iran war. Who do you think will win the 2028 election, Dems or Repubs? Personally, a third party sounds nice. I don't believe either party really cares about the American people like you and me. I think a third party would be nice as well. A lot of people on the left disagree with me on that. They think it's never a good time to support a third party candidate, that the best you can do is hope to get a Democratic candidate in there who will be influenceable enough by the left for them to initiate some voting reforms that would make it possible for third parties to win at a national level, which it just sounds like a plan that is so absurd and convoluted as to be unworkable in my opinion, but whatever. So I guess it depends. If the DNC actually fucking coalesces around, like if the DNC and the voters coalesce around an actual progressive and they stay on that fucking highly progressive policy agenda all the way through, I'll support them. If there was a candidate that supported Medicare for all but also said that Israel has a right to exist, would you endorse? I don't know. I don't know. I guess it would depend on some of their other policies, and I guess it would depend on exactly how they say it and what their reasoning is. Like, when they say Israel has a right to exist, do they mean like it would be wrong for us to leave Israel to the tender mercies of the mullahs? Then maybe they've got a point. Maybe we should find some kind of solution that provides like a two-state solution in that region or something like that, right? It depends on what they mean by Israel's right to exist. But if they mean right to exist in the strictly Zionist sense, then no, I don't think I could endorse them. Especially because Medicare for All, honestly, is one of those policies that pretty much anyone that wants to run as a progressive these days has to have it. It's just like that's one of the things I think the left has been good about, and I think we need to stay good about. But I think we've been good about it so far in like creating like a cultural narrative of like in the minds of people that are on the left and that are thinking about running, with the Democratic Party to like in the left of center in American politics. We've managed to send a message that if you are going to be a progressive in that way, you cannot be opposed to Medicare for all. We've talked about it so much since the 2016 election, and every time some Democratic politician doesn't have that on part of their platform, we make fun of them for it, and we like punish them for it politically, and I think that that is starting to have the right effect of getting people on board with the idea that they need to support this, and that they're going to be held to account if they don't. That kind of pressure I think it needs to keep up, especially if we do end up winning the election in 2028, and if we win the the midterms big time. By we, I mean like regular American people who are actually interested in progressive policies, which most Americans are. But provided that, the people interested in moving society forward win the midterms in 2028, I think there's a really good chance we could get Medicare for all. But I think it's going to be partly contingent on the people keeping up the pressure. Let's say Medicare for all, two-state solution. Sure. Would that be a problem for you, Paradox? Because to me, a two-state solution could, in theory, be quite workable. Like, if they were actually given equivalent statehood. Let's see. Did you know the pentagram is a Christian symbol until it's flipped upside down? It is flipped upside down. It's a deist symbol, not specifically or exclusively Christian. Interestingly. I didn't even know. That's interesting to me. I would endorse easily, but I'm not as far left as you. Yeah, that's fair. To me, it seems like it's not a thing we can really gamble on. I do not like it when my country kills people. I don't like it when my taxes go to help fund that bullshit. And I think it does a lot of real damage on the world stage, and I think a lot of it comes to bite us in the ass. So, I am a real hardliner about the Gaza, the Israel-Palestine issue. I think any politician that I'm going to support needs to recognize that Israel's been committing a genocide and needs to recognize that we should stop supporting them. At the very least, that we need to cut off aid and weapons to Israel. Reading this chat is my personal hell? Yeah. No, I don't blame you. This chat is awful. You are so full of yourself that you need to see exactly what your ideology is making us feel like. Huh? What are you even saying? Trans people are the new age Nazis, apparently. All they talk about is their hatred for Jewish people. Interesting, because I've been talking about Israel-Palestine, and I don't think Israel has a fucking thing to do with Jews. Jewish people are good, hardworking, regular people. Some of them are involved in finance, banking, and fucking Hollywood. Most of them are not. Most of them are regular fucking people. And I support the right of Jews everywhere to live unmolested by white supremacist systems. Do not ever accuse me of anti-Semitism again, you Mossad fucking bitch. If you think the state of Israel represents the Jews, you're the fucking anti-Semite, Jew hater. You want to put the fucking genocidal war crimes of Israel on the entire Jewish people. Fuck you, anti-Semite. I agree that our support for Israel should be rolled back. I just hope that the far left don't let positions on Israel block progress for America. I don't think we're going to have to, Paradox. You have to understand, right? A lot of the fucking purpose of this kind of advocacy and this kind of activism, especially in the lead up to an election, is to make progressive candidates understand that this needs to be a part of their platform, that this can be a part of their platform, that it should be a part of their platform. That's why we're so adamant about pointing out how many people on the right agree with the overall left, how many average centrist Democrat voters even agree with this basic premise, right? That's why the advocacy has been so harshly against the fucking centrist moderate leaders of the party, and so forward in support of progressive and leftist candidates, and so critical of the average Democrat in power's position on Israel, is because the hope is that we influence these politicians that may get into office into having a stance that is actually humanistic on this issue. I'm gonna have to pull up chat on my other phone because the way my shirt is designed is making it impossible for me to read chat. Or it's not impossible, but it's very difficult. Come on, YouTube. Okay, there we go. Oh, damn. Now I can see how many people are getting banned out of chat, too. You guys are doing awful. Not gonna lie, we need a humanist political party straight up. Yes, no, 100%. I don't think that any of the political parties that we currently have at a national level, the Libertarians, Democrats, or Republicans, are offering that. But I do think that all of us folks who thinks alike, as Bob Dylan once said, we need to get together and find some fucking way that does not involve supporting people who constantly fuck us over and who constantly make America a monster on the world stage. And I think we can do that. I think we can do that through a combination of supporting good third-party and independent candidates and supporting good people that are running with the Democrats but that are actually to their left. I hear you, but a lot of leftists let Israel stop them from voting for Kamala. Not putting that on you, but it's concerning to me. I mean, yeah, honestly, I will be honest with you, Paradox. Her position on Israel and her position on war in general kind of turned me off of Kamala. Now, if I'd been able to vote, I probably still would have voted for her, but I would have continued criticizing her all the way up to the election. You know, I still would have criticized her afterwards because I think that Democrats need to know that this is an unacceptable position, that they need to have a position that actually matches what we, their voters, want, right? It's ultimately on the Democrats if they don't want to mold their policies to fit what their voters want, right? The Democrats are not like the thought leaders of the American people. They're not like the people who are supposed to come up with how we feel. They are supposed to be literally reflections of how we feel. The Republicans are too. Like they're like the whole idea of a political party is to form a group that can correlate enough people's interests for it to work as a movement and get political change done, right? When they stop representing your interests, that means you should stop supporting them, right? That's the way I see it. And so in my opinion, it is incumbent on Democratic candidates to change change their positions It is more incumbent on Democratic candidates to change their positions than it is on leftists to stop criticizing them for their bad positions on Israel. The conservatives do nothing for our veterans, and conservatives cut VA funding all the time. Yeah, literally. Every single time conservatives are into power, you see a commensurate reduction in the amount of services that are provided for our veterans. So don't act like Democrats are not the friends of veterans as if Republicans are, you know. If you were in charge of America, what are the first things you do? Love from Oregon? The literal very first thing I would do is implement universal health care. That to me, like, that is the biggest and most egregious failure of our society in the last 20 years. The fact that we have failed utterly to conceptualize and implement a universal health care system that covers every man, woman, child, and non-binary person besides in this country in their fucking healthcare journey. That needs to be ameliorated immediately. So that's the first thing I would do. By the way, it's members only time, so if you want to continue chatting in the live chat, please sign up for the membership, because we are switching to members only. Okay, but yeah, so that's the first thing I would do. Second thing I would do is, Phoebe, did you steal that shirt? No. I got this from Goodwill, actually, I think. It is really cute, though, isn't it? But yeah. Oh, damn. Paradox with the $50. Thank you so much. Totally fine with the criticism as long as the vote and endorsement still goes to the better option. I appreciate the nuance you give on these topics. Well, I appreciate you, Paradox, for that $50. That's an incredibly generous donation, and I thank you. It is the support of people like you, after all, that enable this channel to continue producing content at the pretty healthy clip that we've done, so I cannot overstate my appreciation for that. Yeah, I try to be nuanced on this shit. Ultimately, I pretty much held the position like Kamala Harris is obviously the better choice than Donald Trump. She's still not good enough. She's still not good enough, and if you don't want to vote for her, like, I can't really blame you, I guess. But, like, my position was always, if you're not going to vote for Kamala, you better not vote for the fucking Republican. Please, just vote third party. You know, like, if you're not going to vote for Kamala Harris, just vote fucking third party, and please vote on your local and state level fucking shit. Like, your local shit, your state level shit, and even some of the fucking people that are, like, state federal, you know, like the people who represent your state on a federal level, like, go vote for them, too. But if you can't stomach a vote for Kamala Harris because of her position on Israel and Iran and stuff like that, I can kind of understand that. You have to understand things are still going to be better under her than they are going to be under Trump. We're still going to have more time to operate and do more things under Kamala. But, you know, I can't lie and say that she's earned anyone's vote, you know. And I was actively opposed to the idea of voting for Joe Biden. I was like, nah, just vote third party. This is bullshit. There's no way. There's no fucking way. And even then, I was pretty sure that Joe Biden was still going to win. I did not see the, like, Trump victory coming, honestly. Because, well, I did see the Trump victory coming at a certain point. After they, like, switched horses and everything. But, like, well, actually, it was the debate, really, what did it. The debate was when I was like, oh, no, okay, all right. The next 6 months are going to have to go very, very good for Joe Biden if he's to win this election. And that's the point at which I was like, yeah, no, just, but the point is, you know, my position changes a little bit over time. I am perfectly willing to take in new information and to, you know, reflect on what I might have done wrong in the past, so. Apparently 2024 election had the lowest voter turnout in American history, so I find myself conflicted about not voting for the DNC ticket when actively disliking their candidate because what we have now is the direct consequence of abstinence. Well, it's not, saying it's the direct consequence of abstinence almost makes it sound like it's the only, like, abstinence is the only thing, right? Why did so many people stay home, right? 6 million people that voted for Joe Biden did not show up to vote for Kamala Harris. Why? Why? One has to wonder, right? You do agree that even Biden would be better than Trump, right? Yeah, well, Biden's handlers would be better than Trump, sure. I'll agree with you there. Can we meet in the middle and agree that it probably would not be Biden himself, but rather like a rotating series of handlers that are on the left and kind of progressive DNC aligned kind of people? Yeah, it'd probably be better than Trump. Yeah, LOL. Okay, yeah, yeah. As long as we both agree that it's a decrepit old zombie who would not have been making the decisions himself, then sure, yeah. And that might even be true of Trump, too, which is why I think that that's one of the things that's worth bringing up, right? Is that Donald Trump himself is probably led by the nose on a lot of stuff by his own rotating cast of aides and fucking simps and yes men. So who knows how much of the policy that's actually being done and engaged in is actually coming out of Trump's mouth or his brain. And definitely the same thing was true of Biden. So, well, especially towards the end of his term. I don't know how true that was necessarily towards the beginning. But anyway, I do want to read the voter turnout thing, or I did read it, but I want to respond to it a little bit more. The thing I wonder, right? Like 6 million people voted for Joe Biden, did not vote for Kamala Harris. Why did they not do that? In my opinion, it is because the DNC believed that their personal little elitist idea of what the country should get was better than allowing the voters to decide what direction the country should go. And in my opinion, the reason why they did that is because the DNC are billionaire stooges, ultimately. Billionaire stooges with better social positions and often better governance tendencies, but billionaire stooges nonetheless. There's only so far to the left the Democrats can move without losing some of their networks with billionaires and fucking rich people and corporations. And I think that a lot of them are way more invested in keeping up those networks than they are in winning elections or actually representing the American people. And that's why I'm such a big advocate for replacing the current leadership and a lot of the current makeup of the federally relevant Democratic Party and even some of these state offices with people who are actually progressive. And that's why I'm so interested in being so firm on this advocacy and so hard on pointing out when the DNC fucks up and makes the wrong decision, has a bad policy, has a bad politician with a bad set of policies. Because I think we can make these people change. They are way more receptive to us than the Republicans are. You know, like they kind of have to be. They're not very receptive to us at all, but they are more receptive to us than either the Libertarians or the Republicans are, and the Libertarians can't win a national level election anyway. I'm still confident that in 2028 the Dems will have a ticket of Newsom and Shapiro, the most unelectable ticket in history. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you're right, Margot, and I think that they will probably win on that unelectable ticket. But I think that it's going to be way closer of a call than anyone's going to like, and I really do seriously worry about a situation like 2000. Just because of how Trump has been pushing the Republican Party in the direction of instigating more and more claims of fraud over the preceding years and shit. It just genuinely makes me worry. Is there going to be a decision made like, okay, we've got to fudge the numbers on this however we can to make the fucking Republicans win because it's just narrow enough that we can make that work? I hope the Democrats have better sense than that. I hope they run a completely open primary, and I hope they don't interfere in it. Understand this, DNC. If you interfere in your fucking primary process in 2028, and you don't just go with whatever fucking hardcore progressive that the American people will no doubt put up, you will probably lose in 2028. And I don't even think you necessarily should, but you probably will. And you probably will do so on a technicality, which will make everyone very pissed off. So don't do that. Just go with a progressive candidate. Please, DNC, please. I would love Newsom, but I doubt that will be the ticket. I would not love Newsom. Can someone tell me what Newsom did with the homeless people? I know they haven't been moved from every area of California, I know that there's some places where, but can somebody tell me, what did Newsom do with them? Did he just ship them all to Utah or something? That's one of the things I always think about whenever I think of Gavin Newsom is one of the big things that people cite as a as a success of his, one of the big things they'll cite is, oh, the homeless population went way down under Gavin Newsom, or he cleaned up the streets, and it's like, what did he do with them? Because they're people. Oh, there is a heated argument going on in the chat. So, Paradox says he is, though. California is the most trans-friendly state in the nation, and he rolling out a billionaire tax. But I don't know if fucking Gavin Newsom is the one rolling out the billionaire tax. I feel like a lot of people have been calling for a billionaire tax, and Gavin Newsom might be acquiescing to that now. But that doesn't necessarily mean he'll carry that policy up to the fucking national level. There's lots of fucking state politicians who do one thing when they're at the state level and go a completely different direction when they get to the fucking federal level. Just look at Mitt Romney. But anyway, what was I about to say? I'll read the chat. Maybe it'll remind me. Oh, you said California's most trans-friendly state in the nation. Well, that's great, but who's to say that he's going to bring that attitude towards people to the federal level? And how do you account for his recent kind of mix-up on that position where he's suddenly acting like transgender youth shouldn't be able to access care? Like, he's definitely acquiesced to some conservative positions, or at least has done so in rhetoric. The more trans-friendly... It's more trans-friendly than most of the country, but personally I feel it needs a bit of work. Yeah, well, I would argue that most of America honestly needs a bit of work in that respect. Oh. Why are you meowing, kitty? You out of water again? No, you're not out of water. You're fine. You got plenty. You got plenty of all your needs. I gotta use the bathroom, so I will be right back. Okay. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. I'm loving it. He passed legislation that stopped teachers from being forced to out trans kids to their parents. He fought about that with Kirk. Teachers from being forced. Well, yeah, well, okay, so I read your comment and the one before it. I wasn't saying he did anything to stop youth care for transgender minors. What I was saying is that he has come out against it in rhetoric. That it seems like, based on the things he's talked, based on the things he's said to the conservatives he's talked to on his podcast, doesn't seem like he's like as much of a friend of the trans community as people like to act. I agree with you. It is nice to have a politician that recognizes that trans people are valid, okay? It's nice. But, like, I feel like it's kind of conditional with Gavin, and I feel like it's not as well informed as like just look at Zoran Mamdani. Look at how he addresses issues around trans people and everything. He seems completely comfortable with the concept, seems to pretty much understand the science behind it and shit. Whereas Gavin Newsom gives me the impression of somebody who's cool with it but really doesn't get it. That's pretty base. School should be a safe place for kids, for the oppressive parents when they're around friends, etc. I'm not up on California current affairs. Yeah, I like that law. Don't get me wrong. I like that law, but didn't that end up getting struck down anyway? Or am I misremembering? He would bend into whatever shape Capitol wanted as president. He has no backbone, no conviction. That's another thing I worry about. I think Margot's right on this one. I think Gavin Newsom is a go along to get along moderate Dem that will pretty much do what he has to stay in the position of power that he has. He does not strike me as an activist. Maybe he's got some history I don't know about, but he does not strike me as a guy who's been like, man, I'm super fucking interested in getting fucking justice for the people and all this shit. Like, that's who I really think. If you want to talk about like a really good presidential candidate, I want somebody who has been on the fucking front lines fighting for better policies and justice for the people for fucking decades. That's why I was such a champion for Bernie. Because despite working his whole life and everything else, you know, in different positions and moving through the different political stuff and, you know, never doing any one thing for that long until he got into the Senate, like, he stayed fighting for justice that whole time. You know, from the time he was a college intellectual to now. He has stayed fighting for justice. He has stayed advocating in the face of people with power and people with privilege and position for things to be better. You know, like for a lot of years, Bernie Sanders was the only real leftist in American politics. Like for a lot of fucking years. Bernie was like the only real, like, meaningful leftist in American politics. That's the thing. Paradox, let me ask you this. Can you blame me? Think back, Paradox. I don't know how old you are. I'm not old enough to remember the 60s, but I'm old enough that my parents, one of them does remember the 60s. And I'm old enough for my grandparents to well remember the 60s. And I'm old enough that I heard stories about it growing up and that I watched movies about it growing up. Can you really blame me for wanting the Democratic Party to live up to the values of the people who make it up and what they were proposing in the 60s and 70s? Can you really blame me? Because Bernie Sanders is the one amongst their number who has taken that advocacy and gone up with it and has fucking taken it with him the whole time. He was fighting for justice and civil rights in the late 60s. He's still fighting for civil rights and justice today. Just like I think socialism is the call for societies to make good on the promises of the Enlightenment, I think that my political advocacy is more or less a call for the Democrats to make good on the promises of the social justice movement and the civil rights movement. "32? Yeah, so you're older than me. The worst thing the DNC ever did was pushing Hillary over Bernie in 2016, in my opinion. Feels like that was our shot for real. Well, it's my opinion that started a trend that has not died since then. The DNC heavily interfered in the 2016 primary to make Hillary come out on top, despite a lot of the votes actually going for Bernie. The DNC used superdelegates and other underhanded tactics to just hand it to Hillary instead. It's not the first time that they did some shit like this, but it was probably the time in most people's recent memory and the time that is certainly most egregious and most famous. And yeah, I do think that that's kind of like the turning point. If you want to look back at a certain point in history where the DNC can be blamed for doing something that fucked us over, massively. It is handing the election to Donald Trump by interfering in the primary instead of throwing their weight behind Bernie Sanders. If they had left Hillary to her own devices and left Bernie to his own devices and decided who to put their weight behind after the fucking nomination was complete in the like they didn't do any of the superdelegate shit, they didn't fucking put their fingers on the scales at all, Bernie would have won. I gotta put my mics up because my phone's about to die, so I gotta put it on the charger. But yeah, I genuinely believe Bernie Sanders would have won that primary, and I think he would have won the general election afterwards. There was every bit as much weight, if not more, behind Bernie as there was behind Trump. Trump was seen as this kind of like outsider candidate. Bernie was seen kind of the same way, but seen as a little bit more politically involved. Well, quite a bit more politically involved. But he was seen as kind of like an outsider because he was not, like, up until 2016, he never identified himself with the Democratic Party. He would caucus with the Dems, but he was like a fierce independent. And, like, if they had not put their fingers on the scales, there was every bit as much momentum as was needed to win a general election behind Bernie. And it is only the choice of the DNC that led to it happening otherwise. By the way, thank you for making me a member. Oh, I didn't make you a member. Somebody must have bought you a membership, which is good. Thank you to whoever bought you a membership. I don't blame any progressive for what they want. I do think most of them are far too impatient, though, and the purity testing they do only delays the change they want. Oh, I mean, how do you feel about 2016? Let me use that as an example. Do you think we purity tested too hard in 2016? Because you would have been 22 in that election. If I was 18, you would have been 22, or give or take, 22, 23. Do you think we purity tested too hard in 2016? Because I think that given that we didn't have a Trump one to look back on, I guess I would defend people voting third party or not voting for Hillary a lot more readily than I would them doing the same thing to Kamala, because I feel like with 2024, we already had the example of Trump wanted to look back at and be like, yeah, he was a shitty president. Didn't do any of the shit he said he was going to do that would have been positive. Did a ton of shit that he said he wouldn't do that was negative. Bad guy. Shouldn't support him, right? But in 2016, there's, lots of people just go on vibes and what a politician says they're going to do. And to some degree, I can't really blame them, because how can we, bitch at politicians for lying and not being honest about their positions and walking shit back if, we're also not going to recognize that people vote on vibes. Point is, I think that in 2016, the purity testing probably was a lot more defensible. Was it the right decision? Looking back on it, probably not. Looking back on it, probably should have voted Hillary. I don't like Hillary, and I don't think her policies would have been that meaningfully different from Trump's. But we might have subverted the Trump movement. Thank Nando or Bugs, we won't get change with moderate Dems. Yeah, that's how I feel. That's why I'm so, rabidly opposed to them when it comes to saying who I want to vote for, saying who I think other people should vote for, because just in general, I feel like people should be voting for people that actually want to achieve the policies that they actually want to see. And not just merely voting on the basis of what they think would be, best pragmatically, Because I just feel like eventually, like you say we're impatient, I think you're impatient. Because my plan is that eventually these Democrats will get it through their thick skulls that they will not win elections unless they run as actual progressives. And I think that theory is proving out to be true. As Democrats and potential candidates around the country see the margins with which true progressives are winning and the success that they're having and how people are feeling about them, more and more people are coming in support of those sorts of policies. In my opinion, Bernie lost fair and square, and Hillary would have been an amazing prez. Oh boy. Still would have been happy to vote for Bernie in a general, though. I don't think that Bernie was... No, I don't think Bernie lost fair and square, but I guess we can save that argument for another day. Let's see here. She'd have been better than Trump on human rights in this country, but fair and square in the primary, nah. Yeah, I think she would have been better on human rights in America. But would she have been better on human rights, like, in general? Probably not. Like, would she have been, like, less oppressive to the third world than Donald Trump? Probably not, because Democrats and Republicans both have a really bad track record with foreign policy. But she would have definitely been better for human rights domestically. And maybe the Democrats winning in 2016 would have encouraged more Democratic participation in the following years, and maybe that could have led to some changes in Congress that would have enabled the Dems to pass, for example, like more humanistic immigration legislation or a better Medicare package that actually like starts expanding it to be like Medicare for all. Who knows? I also think she'd still embrace Zionism and tech billionaires, the proliferation of data centers, and corporate interests in general. Definitely, Calix. Yeah, well, that's the thing. Hillary was a moderate Dem. Moderate and centrist Dems tend to be in favor of the billionaire class. The DNC, in my opinion, is mainly a mechanism for, at this point, is mainly a mechanism for correlating, like, the billionaire's will with, like, some semblance of the people's will and trying to make a political philosophy out of that, basically. What was I about to say? Oh, right. Yeah, so if you notice, a lot of these like moderate Dems and more centrist Dems and shit, they haven't really come out and said much about the data centers or about the proliferation of AI or about any of the kind of solutions to these things, because the tech billionaires that are heading this technology up and are responsible for it being as popular as it is are also the same tech billionaires that want to avoid programs like UBI from becoming a thing at all costs. And so, in my opinion, they are probably like actively preventing a lot of Dems through conversation and everything from coming out in support of any of the things that would ameliorate this situation. Because ultimately, the billionaire class, they've got the same agenda for the Democrats that they have for the Republicans. Make it so that more poor people die, so that the world becomes easier for the billionaires to live in. That's it. That's what they want. They know. See, and it's sad when you realize this, right? But just hear me out here. AI is rapidly proliferating. It's starting to take over all kinds of jobs. There are already people whose jobs are becoming reduced in scope or much broadened in scope because of AI, and like that is happening more and more. There are more industries every day that are becoming eligible for, or not eligible, but that are becoming good candidates for this kind of technological development, and that creates a problem. If you're going to put millions and millions and millions of people out of work. And it's going to be a good 10% of the population or more, even in the beginning stages. 10% would be like 36 million people with America's population what it is right now. 36 million people. What do you do with 36 million people? Because we do not have a social safety net that can support 36 million people who can't get jobs, especially 36 million fucking people who used to have jobs that were pretty well paying in a lot of cases. Because honestly, like, there are a lot of well-paid jobs that'll be replaced by AI before, like, some low-paying jobs will be. Because there are, like, high-paying jobs where people are currently paid tons to do stuff that if these companies could just get a cheaper yearly contract with an AI to do the same work of a team that they're paying, cumulatively $5 million a year, basically, and they can get an AI contract for $1 million a year that'll do all that work and more, why wouldn't they make that deal? And so you suddenly end up with millions and millions of people who are no longer even able to get a job because they're overqualified for all the jobs that are available around them, and they are, like, not correctly qualified for the jobs that they would be able to get despite the economic changes. Damn it. And why that's a problem, if you're wondering, is because a lot of those people support a lot of other aspects of the economy, right? We're talking about people who are, like, a lot of the people we're talking about getting replaced in these initial waves of AI firings are people making pretty good money. They're not rich, but they're fucking making pretty good money. They're well off. They're middle class. Thank you for the flow state. Nice. Thank you. Who was that from? Thank you, Jayla. I appreciate that. But yeah, a lot of these jobs and shit that they're going to be losing are not jobs that they can just easily replace, and a lot of them, because they are just middle class, are supporting a ton of other people, basically, indirectly, with their spending and shit. Take the mortgage on their house and the car payment out of it. What they're spending on food is, getting recirculated through their local community, probably, at least some of it is. What they're spending on, like, local restaurants and shit, that's getting recirculated through the local economy. So when you're talking about, like, cutting off, millions of people that are currently in what's left of the shrinking American middle class, and you're talking about just they're not going to have jobs anymore, that is going to put other people out of work too. Millions of other people, and it's going to have a cumulative effect. There are jobs that are not replaced. There are jobs that will be lost due to AI proliferation, not because AI replaced them, but because AI replaced the person or the people who kept those businesses afloat. Replacing middle management doesn't have the same impact on consumers, so sadly there won't be the same kind of pushback. I mean, replacing middle managers might not have, like, an immediate effect on consumers. It might even make prices lower in certain industries or in certain areas, but it's going to have a ripple effect on the economy. I genuinely believe that. And that's coming from a person who wants to replace middle managers as part of a broader economic strategy, right? But, like, in our current system, with no, like, social safety net introduced and no ceiling or floor to catch the people who are going to fall, I just feel like replacing a ton of people, from middle managers to software developers to project leaders and shit like that, all kinds of people who do, some of them are bullshit jobs, some of them are less bullshit jobs, and we're talking about millions of people getting replaced in the first waves of this. That's going to have a ripple effect on the economy, as there are like people that can no longer afford to pay for their houses, so suddenly they've got to sell their house and move into a much smaller house. And it's not like that fucking big ass mansion that they're moving out of is suddenly going to get cheaper for everybody else. They're going to move into some smaller house, which is going like that. That effect alone is going to make the housing market more expensive. I mean, it's just like the effects of this are kind of hard to predict and capture in one conversation, because they're going to touch so many different areas and affect so many different people's lives. And my thing is, like, it does not appear like we're pushing the brakes on this tech, so we need to figure out a way to support people through the transition, you know? We need to figure out a way, like, we need to fucking implement a massive, massive suite of safety nets in this country that make it so that you no longer have to worry about housing, so that you no longer have to worry about food, so that you no longer have to worry about getting around. Ultimately, I kind of agree with Margot more, Paradox. I kind of think that, like, yeah, the problem with the Democrats and continuing to support them when they give us shit candidates is that, like, we cannot control the minds of the entire American people. And there are a ton of American people who will vote for the incompetent, fucking populist, obvious fascist over the incompetent, fucking not populist, like, elitist Democrat. Even if the elitist Democrat would be a better source of governance, even if they would be a better representative of their interests, there's just a lot of fucking people that, if the vibes ain't right, they ain't voting that way. And, like, that is one of the problems with allowing Democrats to think that they will just endlessly get our vote no matter what kind of fucking candidates they put out. That's why I think that the only Democratic candidate you should vote for is one that is critical of Democratic Party leadership and Democratic Party history when they fucked up. Because in that case, you're actually voting for the change you want to see. But if you're just voting for, like, one of these typical centrist moderate fucks, you're kind of just voting to kick fascism down the road. You're not really voting to, like, end or even really meaningfully oppose fascism. It's more like you're just, like, you know, it's more like you're just kicking the can down the road. You're saying, well, we don't really have a good candidate this time, but because we don't have a good candidate, the best thing we can do is push it on down the road and see what happens later. And I just reject that. We disagree on this, but that's expected. Yeah, we can still be friends. It's fine. Well, you kind of are, though, if you're not, like, if you're, like, literally saying, well, you just got to vote for the lesser of two evils in this instance, even though the lesser evil isn't that much of a lesser evil, because it's, you know, not going to do this, then that other thing, but you kind of recognize, ultimately, that the Democrats are at fault when they fuck up, like, that they're most at fault, right? And I feel like you would have to agree, right? It is not the retarded voter that is at fault, because, frankly, a lot of Americans are just voting on what information they're able to get. They are a result of their material conditions. They, in many cases, don't have the education or the awareness to do better. But the fucking Democrats do. And if their elitist vision of the world was true, then they should be able to win elections just, you know, on the basis of their own strategy and everything. So I don't see how anybody can blame the voters. Even if you do think the voters are completely stupid morons, it's like, well, okay, but the Democrats aren't. And if the Democrats realize that people are completely stupid morons, then why don't they just, like hell, why don't they engage in, like, cynical strategies more? You know, like, hell, just do anything, like, fucking win if you're gonna make things better. And that's the whole sell, and that's the whole pitch. Delaying the inevitable instead of active prevention, exactly, is how I feel about it, yeah. That's the way I felt about 2024 in a lot of ways. I felt like 2024's election was kind of like an opportunity to maybe either delay the inevitable or maybe get away from MAGA. It just depended on how things went after the fucking election. But, you know, Kamala didn't win in 2024. I was pretty sure she wasn't going to, especially, like I said, after the debate. And then after Trump's assassination, it was just not looking good for the Harris campaign. Not that I'm saying the Harris campaign had anything to do with that fucking assassination. Obviously, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that assassinations tend to have a polarizing effect on a politically involved public, and they did in that instance. It did in that instance, I should say. Let's see. Dems are good, though. That's who delivered every progressive policy anyone here has ever enjoyed. Well, no. Democrats have delivered progressive policies when they've been, like, dragged, kicking and screaming to those progressive policies. Like what policies, Paradox? Well, like, name one. What are you going to say? It's, gay marriage? Well, that was decided by a Supreme Court case, so that wasn't exactly... That's not policy, that's just court precedent, really. And it might be overturned even yet, and the Democrats have made no move to protect it with federal legislation, as far as I know. So, what else we got? Civil Rights Act. The Civil Rights Act was not the brainchild of Democrats. The Civil Rights Act was the brainchild of civil rights leaders and activists who fought for its implementation. Obama didn't do gay marriage. Obama had effectively nothing to do with gay marriage. The Supreme Court decided that. Name one progressive policy brought by Republicans. This is such a straw man argument. I've admitted and recognized that the Republicans are not the solution. My argument is not that you should vote for Republicans instead, but rather that when the Democrats give you dog shit, maybe consider not voting for the dog shit and voting for an independent or third-party candidate you do believe in instead, and voting down ballot on leftist initiatives and ballot prospects otherwise. So, you want to take another crack at it? I'm not suggesting that Republicans have implemented progressive policy. Although, I guess if we wanted to take it all the way back to the 1800s, we could cite their abolitionist tendency. Oh my God, Paradox, you're engaging in a false dichotomy. These political parties are not like magicians who sit around all day coming up with laws and they deliver them to the American people on a silver platter. At least that's not how it's supposed to work. The parties are supposed to be a representative of the people's will. Right? Right? We're a democracy, right? And as far as Obama didn't get dragged kicking and screaming, Obama didn't get dragged kicking and screaming to the ACA because he was an example of a Democrat who was actually kind of an activist and shit in his history and had progressive policies when he got into office. He was dragged kicking and screaming away from his leftist policy, actually. And that's the reason why the ACA didn't do enough. If that's the framework, how do you ever credit Dems for anything? I don't. I credit the fucking people involved. Doesn't that make more sense? Why is my chat not working on here? Weird. Anyway. There it is. Oh boy. Is this new? I don't think this is new. No, it's not new. Why are you giving me old notifications, YouTube? Dumbass. Brett Keen's such a fucking fool. Anyway. Hello, KMO. Damn, I need a water bottle that big. Easier to stay hydrated when it's right at hand. Keep putting off filling the 64-ounce one I use. Yeah, that's why I keep these big old jugs around me. Is because it's a lot easier to remember to grab a jug and take it in and grab a jug and take it out than it is to constantly refill a water cup or a water bottle. So paradox. Listen, what I'm saying is that it doesn't really make sense to credit the Dems for big pieces of legislation and shit like that, when, like, even the Democrats usually credit, like, the fucking activists and people that were involved in getting the legislation pushed, you know, like the people of that state or whatever. And it also doesn't make a lot of sense for me to credit them when the Democratic Party is kind of like openly identifies itself as a big tent party. And so anything that one Democrat does not necessarily mean that that is endorsed by all Democrats or something that you can look forward to being done in all Democratic districts, right? So Zoran Mamdani is a perfect example. Zoran Mamdani ran as a Democrat, won as a Democrat. But are we going to start citing Zoran Mamdani's wins as wins for the Democrats? That would seem a little disingenuous to me. Here's when I will credit the Democrats. When it's national level shit that the party coalesces around. That's when I can credit the Dems, okay? When it's national level policy that they coalesce around and it's actually good for the people. So like FDR type shit, that's a great example. Some of the stuff that Johnson did, great example. Even a couple of the things that Obama did would be an example. I don't necessarily know if the ACA qualifies because I got my misgivings about it, but still. Thank you, King Bugs, for the $20. Damn, we're making good money tonight. I appreciate you guys a ton. I think it's been 70... We made at least 80 bucks tonight, and I think maybe more. So I appreciate you guys a ton. Thank you. Thank you. Have you ever had anyone in your life that you feel doesn't get the credit they deserve? That's how I feel about Dems. They're not perfect, but they don't get credit for anything ever. Well, that's because they've been so dog shit over the last, like most people's lifetimes that are my age or younger, we look around at the Dems and we don't see a whole lot of progress, you know? Like, I get it. People that are older and sometimes they see more of it, but, you know, I feel like, dog, I ain't seen them do enough. Like, the best thing I can cite as far as, like, the Dems having done in my lifetime, the most transformational thing would be the ACA. And it was a half measure on a half measure on a Republican plan. It wasn't even like there was going to be a public option in its inception. That got wiped out. So it wasn't even going to be universal healthcare proper. It was going to be like a healthcare system that could eventually transition, which would have been better than nothing. But even that got whittled down to something that I don't even know if we can really cite as a full-throated win. It's certainly better than what was before. And if that's all you're qualifying as a win, then yeah, we won. Yay! The Democrats did it. But is it? If it is, why is it so hard to get people excited over it? You know? Zoran would not be able to win if he ran as an independent? I don't know if that's true. The Democrats fought Zoran Mamdani fucking tooth and nail. Literally. And when he finally did win the nomination, even with the Democrats fucking actively pushing Cuomo instead and putting all their weight behind him, when he won, their fucking support for him was so tepid. I genuinely believe that Democrats on a national level, Chuck Schumer, would have been perfectly fine if the Republicans won in New York City in that mayoral election. I think they would have been perfectly fine with it. And that's the tendency that I think we need to get out of the party. Do we agree there? The tendency that pushed Andrew Cuomo over Zoran Mamdani? The tendency that gritted their teeth and went like, yeah, fine, I guess vote for fucking Zoran. It is true, they did. Yes, it is true. They did not fight him tooth and nail, that's hyperbolic as fuck. Yes, they did. Come on now. They put all of their support behind Cuomo, literally until the day of the primary, and then when he fucking finally won, it was like, okay, fine. Nah, it's not that they didn't endorse. They endorsed fucking Cuomo. Maybe they didn't endorse as a party. I don't remember like that. Maybe I don't remember them endorsing Cuomo as a party. But I certainly remember Schumer and a bunch of other like Hakeem Jeffries and a bunch of other high-powered Democrats being like, "Hey, Andrew Cuomo would really be the great guy to win in this election, in this primary." I've been hearing rumblings of a potential party of the dissident left and right forming. I'm skeptical too, but I guess we'll see. I've been fucking promoting that for a while. A party that gets together on economic populism and better foreign policy. I would support it. I know a lot of people would fucking hate me for it, but I would support it. As long as it wasn't like explicitly anti-trans or anything like that, I'm not gonna put like social justice on the fucking butcher board for it, but if we can say, hey, we're gonna figure this stuff out later, and we're gonna worry about getting an economic agenda that actually works for Americans and makes this country feasible to live in as AI takes over more jobs, and we're going to stop being evil on the world stage, I could support a party like that. Some people are realizing that there are bigger fish to fry. I'm one of them. Yeah, some people are realizing that they're really, we need to figure out how to live in this country successfully together without killing each other and without making things worse on each other. And we need to do it fast. And we need to fucking put some things aside to get that done. And I think it's good that people are doing that. I hope the DSA makes their own party and I'm a lib. Well, there we go, Paradox. We agree then. We agree, yeah. I genuinely hope the DSA makes their own party, or that this coalition party that fucking King Bugs is talking about happens, because I do think that there needs to be an actual fucking option for people that are on the left and people that are currently apolitical but want to be involved. There are all kinds of people who would go and vote if they genuinely believed that their wishes were being represented and that there was a path for what they wanted to see happen in the country to happen. DSA is getting traction all the time. I do think a good portion of the trans, or of the right, aren't anti-trans genuinely. Yeah, I agree with you. I think a big chunk of the right is basically just using it as like election fodder and as like red meat for the base and kind of for each other. But I feel like it's one of those, like, it's almost like a shared delusion of theirs that they're all anti-trans, they all hate this shit, because we all know that the most likely person to goon to trans porn is not a trans person, but a fucking, you know, a closeted queer person that's pretending to be conservative for clout or whatever, right? So, how actually anti-trans are they? In their rhetoric, incredibly. In their policy, incredibly. But in their souls? I think when it comes down to the voter level, I think it really depends on the person. I think a lot of people on the right are genuinely anti-trans, but I think that there is a larger contingent than people would expect of people that are on the right and just don't give a shit. Yeah, the libertarian right, exactly. We need to survive more than we need the theatrics of a political reality TV show. Yeah, literally. Trans porn is like the most popular porn search in red states. Yeah, it has been for years too. Why hasn't DSA made their own party already? Probably because it's a largely decentralized organization, you know? Like, as far as I know, the DSA doesn't, like, have, like, a national leadership that can decide things like that. It would basically be on a bunch of chapters of the DSA to get together and be like, hey, we are going to form, like, and I don't think it would be basically in the purview of. So, like, I think what would have to happen for the DSA itself to turn into a political party would be just incomprehensibly massive. Because it's so decentralized, you basically have to have every single chapter of the DSA agree to that, and I don't think they would. But what could happen is enough of the chapters of the DSA could form an adjacent DSA, possibly, like, you know, if not DSA endorsed, then endorsed by this many chapters of the DSA, political org that actually does try and run candidates and win seats. That could potentially happen. Oh, hey, Ignar. Dude, we got so many fucking people, so many members in here tonight. Let's see, we got Calix, Kingbugs, Ignar, Margot, Paradox, Joey, 6 fucking people. Damn. Look at all the members in chat. Nice. DSA need to hard separate from Democrats. That's why I'm rooting for Mamdani, AOC, so on. Yeah, dude. I agree. I think that, well, kind of. I don't know, man. I don't know that I do agree. I agree that they need to separate themselves from Democratic Party leadership, and they need to make it very clear that they are not a traditional Democrat, that they have no interest in continuing the status quo, etc. But in places where there's effectively only 2 frameworks available for people, I can totally understand somebody like Zoran Mamdani running as a Democrat despite being a member of the DSA and an avowed socialist and everything, in order to, like, gain the amount of power and influence one might need to help actually create a national movement that isn't allied with the Dems, or to transform the Democratic Party into something that would actually reflect my and many other Americans' genuine interests and desires. I've soured on AOC. Yeah, a lot of people have. I have too. You know, I still think that in a lot of ways she's more of a progressive than a lot of moderate centrist Dems are in her rhetoric, but in terms of her policy, it doesn't seem like she's that much farther to the left than any of them. What's your thoughts on this PSL? I heard they've been a little co-opted and aren't credible. At least in Portland, they seem alright, but what's your thoughts? The Party of Socialism and Labor? That was the party that I believe Claudia de la Cruz was running under, right? I've heard some bad things about them, but all of it sounds like kind of hearsay and drama shit, so I don't know how much of that to believe. Oh, thank you, King Bugs, for the $20. Hell yeah, W Bugs, thank you. I appreciate that a ton. Fuck yeah. But yeah, so I just think that it's probably something I should look into more before commenting on, for sure. In general, I think that anybody trying to get a third-party movement started right now and trying to show Dems the sorts of policies that they can win on and that they can get success with is probably doing good work. But I would have to look into that party more. If you look it up, the DSA candidates win in districts that average Dem plus 30. They never win in red or purple districts. They only win in blue districts when they are attached to the Dem label. Well, that's largely because the Democrats and Republicans have made it such that it's very difficult to have any fucking political success unless you attach unless you attach yourself to one of their frameworks. And in an area that doesn't have an abundant amount of Democratic or progressive support to begin with, you're gonna have a way harder uphill battle getting the Dem nomination in an area like that, or even really being able to get any success with the Dems at all. So that's not really that surprising to me. Plus, in more leftist and progressive areas, you're obviously going to have more DSA participation, which means you're going to have more DSA candidates come for those areas. Hence, they're going to be winning in those areas, yada, yada, yada. But I genuinely think that there are DSA candidates that will start to win across the Deep South in the next 5 years. Mississippi's childhood literacy rate is at number 4 in the country. There are southern states, that surround Mississippi that are starting to do better on their education and stuff like that. There are already cities all over the Deep South that are already lean blue, and that sort of energy can sometimes spread. Sometimes it can spread quite well. It's just dumb to align with folks that you hate to spite another. It's voting for somebody, not against somebody, defeats the whole purpose, in my opinion. Sure, but I think that there is plenty of reason, right? Because of what we've talked about tonight with the amount of procedural rules that the Dems and Repubs have implemented to make it difficult for independent or third-party candidates to win. I just think it's not necessarily a great idea for them to be like, on principle, we shall not talk to these people, nor caucus with them, nor put their letter next to our name. Because I ultimately think that it is the people's purview to make the Democratic Party what they want it to be, or the Republican Party to make it what they want it to be. But, I'm a leftist. I'm going to be talking about things from a leftist perspective, and the Dems tend to be a little bit more amenable to our interests than Repubs, so... Good night, Alex. I gotta get to bed. It's nearly 4 a.m. Who's been stimulating? Have a great night, everyone. Yeah, of course. Have a good night, Alex. Oh. Woo. Anyway, so... Yeah, I agree, there's a reality check coming, and I think it is important and good that it does. You might be surprised how much support Bernie has in red states. I wouldn't be. I know. I've talked to tons of Bernie people in Mississippi. No one ever believes me, and I get that it's kind of anecdotal, but it's like, I don't know, dude, what do I have to do? Show them the amount of fucking support that Bernie had over Hillary in some of these places? Like, come on now. I'm interested, actually. I'm curious about this. Interesting. This is not saying what I thought it was going to say. Okay, let me see if it differs. Damn, okay. So yeah, Bernie did absolutely dog shit, and he did absolutely horrible in Mississippi. But in Arkansas, in 2020, he was second in the Democratic primary vote, finishing behind Joe Biden, who got 40%. But getting 22%, is still pretty awesome. I don't know. It indicates there's definitely some interest, but maybe I am overblowing it a little bit. Anyway, let me read this member message from Ignar. Thank you so much for being a member for so long. I got a wild story to tell you where last night after a karaoke stream, I met a legit JQer, not Nazi type. Next time we chat, I got to tell you about it. I got a wild story to tell you. Oh, okay, cool. Well, do you want to call in, Ignar, and talk about it? Members only treat? You got time? If you want to talk about it, just join Stream Guest Live. You should have the role. If you're on my Discord. You are in my Discord, aren't you? Yeah, you are. And I believe you should have the permissions necessary to get in there. I'm just legit waiting on laundry till I do a cooking stream. Why not? Alright. Let me know. It's the general VC. Well, join that and I'll bring you into the right one. Hey, Ignar. Can you hear me?
Yeah, actually,
there we go. Now I can hear you. Yeah.
I just gotta switch a little bit just so I can make sure that I can hear a little bit better.
Okay. Cool. Well, this is Ignar Husky, everybody. They do their own vertical streams sometimes on YouTube. They're pretty cool. I've had them on the channel before, and they're going to tell us a story about a Nazi, I guess? Yeah.
Yeah. You're just gonna finish quick doing this real quick.
Alrighty. Yeah, did you saw me on DP the other day, right?
Not yet, actually.
Oh, you gotta check that out. You gotta check it out, dog. It's the funniest fucking episode in months. It's great.
Oh shit, I honestly, I found out after I got on vacation, after the fact, that I was just like, what? You're on DP? I was like, fuck. I was like, well, I gotta check that out actually. I didn't have it yet. But I definitely will hear it pretty soon. Like, I'm probably like some of the time where I'm feeling all, killing time at work while cleaning up or something, I'll probably, use that to kind of do my little filler.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, I don't know if anyone on here necessarily. Actually, here while I'm doing this, get where I can get the chat. There we go. But I don't know if anyone on here was around from last time, but I did a karaoke stream for only about like maybe 30 minutes where me and my friend did songs and stuff, and which all that was fun. But after all I finished that, obviously we're socializing, hanging out with some of the people at the bar and stuff. Which probably all that doesn't really match much. But eventually we found a dude, which I don't even remember what his name was, to be honest. Like, we were just like talking for a bit, and then at one point he brought up, which I'm sure you're probably familiar with the riots that happened in Belfast and like in northern Ireland and shit. And with that, like, he kind of brought up like, no, they're not actually like racist riots and stuff that's been going on and blah blah blah. Like, it was like some real fucked up shit that happened in Buffalo. That's why like they need to have immigrants out of there and this and that. And I was like, well, hold up there, bro. Let me kind of like explain a little bit as to why like overall these riots are good, and we can look at particular specific cases and the nuance and realize that those people are good, and specifically to do heinous shit. We could look at that, but we can't blame all immigrants, right? Like, I was trying to kind of like coax it a little bit, and it was like, I kind of agree, blah blah blah. And then like a little bit later, he brought up that like, yeah, but at the end of the day, like, you just run everything, bro. And I just kind of gave him this little weird perk of the eye, like, what?
He said what now?
What do you mean?
He said what now?
He basically said, like, y'all know, like, you just gotta basically run everything, right? Said it so casually like that.
What?
I looked at him with this perk of the eye, like, the fuck do you mean? Like, what?
Like, huh? Do they?
That's how I was, and I was just like, all right, well, what do you mean? And then he's like, well, like, you gotta admit there's some kind of questionable stuff that's happened, especially like, with Aqua's stuff, bro. Like, you can't say that like the way they were doing things was just the way it happened, blah blah blah. Now it's like, really? I kind of looked at him like. I just kind of kept looking at him, and then he mentioned about this quote-unquote, like, Bolshevik crisis that happened in Germany, too, and I literally just asked him, like, what do you mean by that?
Actual Nazi.
About, like, the, like, Jews and communists and the Bolsheviks all being kind of...
Oh, my God.
My friend Logan, and I was just like, uh-oh. This is straight up, like, an actual, like, far-right, like, Nazi revisionist, like, fascist type. I literally, like, texted him on Telegram and be like, while we're all kind of talking a little bit, being like, bro, this dude is definitely, he's definitely not, like, just some schmuck. Like, he's kind of talking shit that I can whip up, like, a mile away with this type of shit. Like, it's literally, like, Nazi talk. Like, straight up.
Yeah, literally. It's right-wing fascist talking points, the likes of which you might hear out of Cat Turd on Twitter.
No, for real. I mean, and what's wild is that, like, that only came out after, like, we were outside and, smoking a cigarette, and then it was just us three chilling after, like, a couple of people left, and I think he probably thought, oh, these two uploads probably, like, I could gauge them, I don't know, let me, like, whip it out a little bit and throw that out and see what happens, and to me, I saw what was being put down, and if it wasn't for the fact that it's, like, a bar I actually kind of like and wanted to still be somewhat, like, active in and shit, like, I would have probably piped up, because I was, like, really bite my tongue and just sitting here, like, rocking my leg, like TJ sometimes, just like, I really have a lot to say, and I don't want to. I ain't trying to get in trouble.
Yeah, no doubt. Oh, my God. In situations like that, I am always split, right? Because part of me wants to stick around and try and convert this schmuck and make them understand the light of day and understand where they're going wrong and try and rescue them. But then there's another part of me that usually starts to speak louder the more of the Nazi dog whistles they bring up, or the more of the outright, like, Nazi, horn soundings they give off. Like, the more red flags, the louder this voice gets, where I'm just like, man, I gotta get the fuck out of here. What the fuck am I even doing? This motherfucker is, like, dangerous for me to talk to. And I feel like the more somebody gets ingratiated into it, the deeper they get into that mess, the more, like, frightening the ideology that they're proposing becomes. Because, like, honestly, I feel like most people on the right that aren't, like, on the fringes and shit, just like your average American right-wing voter, has probably some Nazi tendencies, maybe, but doesn't have all this fucking weird background knowledge and shit to try and justify all the conspiracy theories that they only have a dull, vague sort of awareness of, right? Then you've got these fucking far-right fascist fucks you're talking about that have taken that the next step further. They have clarified those vague visions into grandiose dreams of racial purity and the destruction of the weaker races and all this other crazy bullshit, right? And they feel like they've got theory behind them. They feel like they've got certain academics and shit behind them, when in reality academia has always, not always, but academia has for a very long time now been on the side of progressives. But these people, when they get to that point, become actually dangerous, because it is at that point that they can start to codify mythologies on the basis of their backwards bigoted beliefs.
Absolutely. And I think, especially when it comes to, this whole problem with Israel stuff that's happening as well, I think this is exacerbating to an extent, because, it never really came up. But he really did kind of mention, Israel with the Jews and this. He emphasized Jews specifically, but he did bring it up, at one point, and didn't really want to, add to it, because at this point I was just like, oh, I kind of know what you're about. I saw what you put down, kind of shit. So I was like, I'm not trying to really add too much to this at this point. I'm just kind of looking at my friend being like, he's talking this shit, we probably shouldn't really interact with him anymore.
I gotta tell you, there is one other option that you have, and it kind of just depends on the environment you're in and the company you're in, I guess. If you are around other progressives and other lefties, or if you're in like a punk bar or something, and somebody starts saying that kind of shit, you can start making fun of them. Basically, you can be like, for example,
the space that we were at is there's a huge stretch of road called 82nd here in Portland. It's mostly known for kind of being a little greasy, let's just say. You know what I mean? A little raunchy around the edges. And this bar isn't necessarily too different. I wouldn't necessarily say it's like a right-wing bar at all, but it's also not like a left-wing one. It's kind of neutral in that way, but it's pretty progressive, though. In the sense that people are actually pretty chill spot for the most part. But, there's going to be a little hodgepodge of characters. And at least with this guy I'm talking about, too, I wouldn't necessarily say he's maybe an active, Patriot style guy that's going to go out there doing Jan 6 shit.
How do you know, though?
He seems a little too shoving around the edges and too Stone Bro-esque.
Have you ever seen any of those fools?
Drink beers kind of shit, you know what I mean? He doesn't really seem like the type to be violent despite his beliefs, So I didn't really feel fully threatened by everything. I was just kind of man, you're still doing damage regardless just because of these beliefs, and you're honestly trying to gauge it out and seeing if you're comfortable around here with this type of shit.
Innocent Ignar. Innocent, naive Ignar thinks that you can't be a member of the Proud Boys or the Patriot Front if you're a pudgy motherfucker that likes to drink beer on the weekends. Innocent Ignar.
I'm sure he is. I won't be surprised. I'm just saying I don't think he is active with doing weird little regiments and shit. You know what I mean?
He's not a militiaman, is what you're trying to tell me, right?
Card probably in his wallet, and be like, I'm a member, but
oh yeah. Why'd you give him the Brett Keaton voice? I don't remember. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Actually, I don't kind of have my proud carrying right now for a college situation. Speaking of, do you believe that the man Matinee himself actually has cancer, or is that bullshit?
You know what I think? We talked about this on DP, so I would say if anybody's listening and they want to hear my full thoughts on it, huh?
Another reason to check that shit out, I suppose.
Yeah, well, I was about to say, anybody wants to see my full take on it can watch the Drunken Peasants episode I was on. I don't remember which episode it was, but it was the one right before the last one, or the one before that. It was one of the last 3 streams. But anyway, I think that it's basically, and this is basically the take I gave on DP, I think it's basically a boogie situation. I think that Brett Keane was told that he's got something that's precancerous. I think he was told that he's got something, some kind of condition that is precancerous, and that there's a possibility that he might, there's a possibility that he might, like, develop cancer if he doesn't get on the right meds and do the right treatments and go through the surgeries and stuff. And I think there's a chance that he actually does have cancer and he had to get some growths removed, and that, you know, now he's going through a treatment process, but I think it's probably more likely that he's bullshitting. He recently posted a video just called Brett Keane Cancer, where he posts, and the whole thing is just basically the screenshot of what he claims is his doctor giving him, like, sending him a letter from St. Louis Mercy. The problem with it is that that letter could very easily have been made by ChatGPT or Claude or fucking any of these other things. Like, Brett Keane is definitely capable of copy-pasting enough.
Right now, so it totally makes sense. It'd be up his alley.
Right, it would be right up his alley to do it. And another thing is, a lot of hospitals, especially big ones like St. Louis Mercy, a lot of them have staff lists available with their specialties listed online. So, like, there's no, like, just because fucking Brett Keane posts some goddamn stupid ass screenshot of what he claims is an email or a letter he got from a doctor, doesn't mean that shit is real, doesn't mean it should be trusted. But that letter that he posted claims that he's got stage 2 colon cancer, and that they are hoping he won't have to move forward with chemotherapy and radiation treatments because they are hoping that the surgeries they did will have remedied the problem. But I just don't buy that shit, because my mom, I haven't talked about it on stream much because I don't want people to feel like I'm grifting on sympathy for it or whatever, but my mom's going through cancer, and she has been for a while. She's got, like, stage 3, I think, lung cancer, and it's not growing, it's not progressing, but, you know, she's got, like, a projected
what happened with my mom too, just not to, like, kind of do the same thing, but my mom's, like, gone past remission now, but she had the same thing with uterine cancer, and it was, like, a very slow growing, like, early stage 2, or it was stage 2, but, like, the very early progression of it. And it was just hyper slow growing, you know, and she had it for years, even though it was, like, stage 1 for a very long fucking time.
Yeah. Well, in any case, my mom had to go through a surgery to get some of those growths removed from her lungs, and she still had to go through radiation and chemotherapy treatment. As far as I know, it's pretty standard when you've got cancer to go through those treatments, even if they do get the bulk of the tumors and shit, because they want to make sure that anything else in there, in that area, is also...
That's the case, yeah, because even my mom had the same thing, because now, like, her uterus and everything, like, that's been removed, you know, at this point, but, like, yeah, at this rate, you know, they still were doing that as well, on top of the surgeries they did with her, you know. And plus, you know, she was well post-menopause anyway, so she didn't really necessarily need those organs necessarily much anymore, so they're like, might as well, because it kind of is cheaper while we still do that treatment, just to ensure that it doesn't come back, because, like, there is a risk of cancer coming back with her, but not as likely, just especially because her genes are, I guess, resilient, or her reproductive organs especially, like, even her doctors mentioned, like, they're quote-unquote more, like, youthful in comparison to her actual age. Like, they're, like, you know, like, almost like they were, like, a decade younger with how they were, despite, you know, her age. And if that makes sense, you know, with how the doctors described it to her, I'm just like, well, damn. I will say, I'm glad to have those genes. But,
yeah, for sure.
It's kind of interesting how, like, despite that, like, how cancer and just the human body, like, works like that. It's just
yeah.
Weird.
And people in the chat are saying that it could be possible that Brett Keane does have colon cancer, because it's becoming a more common thing amongst young people. I think Taylor said that, and King Bug said he knows several people around his age that have had it. So I'm not saying it's I'm not saying it would be out of fucking line for his lifestyle. I'm not saying it would be out of character for his age. All I'm saying is that Brett Keane is first and foremost a fucking liar. He is a fucking liar by nature. He lies about every goddamn thing. He lied about smoking weed for years. Dude, Ignar, another thing that happened in that DP episode that I was on, Manatee confession that he smokes weed.
Well, I can't not be surprised at all by that, to be frank.
I am. I thought the motherfucker would die denying he's smoking weed while smoking a blunt in front of everybody's eyes. I thought that motherfucker would die not admitting it.
I mean, like, I suppose, yeah, I felt the same way, but, like...
I'm not surprised that he smokes. I'm surprised that he fucking admitted it.
Because, like, yeah, I smoke some weed. Like, especially with his weird shenanigans and weird lies, bullshit, concocts, like... I mean, there's definitely, like, I'm just, like, frying my brain on weed. Like, almost a weird stereotype of that. Like, he's kind of that guy a little bit, you know, sometimes. I'm like, oh, like, you're so stoned, you don't even know Mao Zedong. You're, like, deal with the dong in that ass. Like, come on now.
Oh, I 100%. Dude, I'll tell you why I think Brett Keane was high in that video. I'll give you a number of reasons. Number one, his fucked up pronunciation of wait, I just did it. I just did it. I just did it. I just did it, Ignar. I just did it. I just said Zhao, and I was about to say Zhao Dadong. Oh no. Mao Zedong. Okay, I remembered the fucking correct pronunciation. Anyway, Mao Zedong. What a fucked up name that guy got. Anyway. Okay, fuck. Okay, hold on. But, no, here's why I think Brett Keane was high in that video. Number one, as we just demonstrated, pot can definitely make it difficult to pronounce a Chinese name. Okay? I think, proven that for everybody, live, on the internet. Proof has been needed for years, we just proved it, okay? Anyway, the other reason I think he's high is because he's wearing the most gaudy fucking pair of borrowed sunglasses I've ever seen in my life. He's wearing this gaudy fucking pair of pink sunglasses that you know he borrowed from Dorn, because he probably got super fucking high. I think back when Brett Keane was a little bit more able to move around and shit, he used to love... I've always said that there are some things that I know me and Brett would have in common if we ever hung out. Or at least would have at one point. I don't know if his old decrepit fucking crippled up ass would now, but at the point where he was still able to move, I think Brett Keane loved nothing more than getting up at certain points of the day and taking a break from the hard work of making shitty YouTube videos, laying down on your mattress or in your fucking decrepit old fucking rescued computer chair, right? Or the hard work of playing Elder Scrolls Online, right? These are, of course, very, very difficult tasks. And he would take breaks from these and go outside and get real fucking high. And I think that video happened after he fucking chiefed a full blunt, maybe him and Dorn together, to the head, and he got real fucking high. And I think that he, like, fucking went to use the bathroom or something before he made the video, looked at himself in the mirror, and, like, was like, oh my god, my eyes are fucking crazy, bro. Look at that. Holy shit, I gotta get... Dorn, let me borrow those pink sunglasses. Why, Brett? Because I need them. The people are going to be able to tell I'm high. Why don't you just tell him you smoke weed, Brett? Because that would ruin my image as a good Christian family man. You're not a good Christian family man, Brett.
I love you have the most, like, smoker-esque, like, raunchy fucking voice that's somehow more masculine than fucking Brett in ways like,
Well, really, all I do for the Dorn voice is basically just pitch shift fucking Brett's voice.
Yeah, I mean, it pretty much is what it is. Pitch shift.
Honestly, if we're being real to Dawn, no. Honestly, Dawn's voice is pretty different from Brett's, but Dorn is still a piece of shit in a number of ways, so fuck it, who cares?
Yeah, I know, for real. He was kind of an enabler, too.
That's the thing. If Dorn was solely a victim, I would be like, okay, obviously she's a piece of shit, but it's like, I think Dorn is a victim of domestic abuse, but also like an enabler of the domestic abuse of others, and an enabler of a long pattern of antisocial behavior inbred. And I think that those two things can be true at the same time. Ultimately, the one at fault is Brett Keane, but I don't think we can let Dorn completely off the hook. Not unless, at some point she leaves Brett and he's made to suffer the cost of being such a shitty husband and father.
Right.
But in general, I don't like to direct my criticism and shame at Dorn, because fucking whatever, dude. People marry people they don't fucking, like, all together get along with all the way, and fucking people marry and don't want to get divorced for all kinds of reasons, and ultimately my problem ain't with Dorn. She, like I said, is an enabler in a lot of ways, but ultimately, the motherfucker doing the damage is the person that takes the greatest fault in my mind.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
There, let's see. I'm gonna read this chat. I'm gonna read this chat from James real quick. I'm currently being prosecuted for trespassing in the hospital ER because I could not stand or walk after being hit by a car. They refused to provide a wheelchair so that I could leave. Instead, hauled me to jail in a wheelchair. That is like ridiculously cruel. That is awful. I hope you sue after that, dude. James, legit. You should look for fucking. Yeah, you need to look for injury attorneys.
Yeah, 100%. That's just ridiculous. Yeah, I'm not going to go anywhere, but I'm going to mute myself for a little bit. I'll be right back, but still listening. I'm just going to switch on my laundry.
Alrighty.
I'll be right back.
Look at Ignar being polite. Muting so that we don't have to hear the whoosh, whoosh, tung, whoosh, dum, tung, 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 At 67, I've never been convicted of a misdemeanor or felony. I hope you're able to beat it pretty easily then, because with that kind of track record, you should be able to just... It should be an open and shut fucking thing. You should obviously not be prosecuted for such a thing. And in fact, I would argue that the fucking hospital should at the very least have civil liability, but should possibly, maybe even probably, have criminal liability. Because that sounds like a direct violation of the ADA. Oh. Phoebe, tell him to check Discord. Oh, I guess, Signar, you should check Discord. I have 2 settlements coming already before considering the suit against cops and hospital. My public defender has a video from the ER. Nice. That's good. That's good. That's awesome, actually. Oof. Alright. I will be right back because I gotta pee. Oh. So I guess we're just leaving you guys with all the dead air. But I can't help it. I gotta pee so bad.
I don't know if they will hear me. I'm really just switching my wet laundry to be dry laundry. And also I cannot read the chat right now, so. I guess I'm supposed to speak to myself. I hope everyone's doing good.
Oh. I don't give a shit if you guys can hear me pee or not. Another feature I have in common with Brett. I am hungry as shit. Anyway, okay. Sorry, Phoebe, but I have heard you pee. Okay, well, that's just the way the fucking cards have played out then. The more important question is, where did my lighter go? And I found it. The pea, the train, the cat, all Sonic characters. What now? I think I admitted to pissing myself in my sleep a few weeks ago, so don't feel bad. You did. Yeah, you did. And I think we all had a good hearty horse laugh at that. So yeah, it's, Woohoo! I found mine too. Ah, fuck it. It's members only stream anyway. Might as well age gate it myself. Ain't like anybody ain't gonna be a member is gonna be coming up here in there anyway. Dude, I am so glad I have the job I have. I hope I'm able to keep revenue steady. I made less last month than I made the month before that, which is not a good sign. But if it can plateau at what I made last month, and I can start building again, then that'll be great. And I'll consider that a pretty big win. Ultimately, I think it has been a pretty successful experiment for me to start doing these streams where it's like half of it is for everybody, and then the other half is basically just for the members. Anybody can watch, but only you guys get to chat with me. I think that has delivered my members quite a bit of value because I keep seeing more and more members participating in the chat every single time I do it. I keep seeing more people with memberships that they've kept for multiple months, and that tells me that I'm doing something right. So, hold on, got a super chat. Oh shit, King Bugs, fucking $100. Thank you. I wasn't even e-begging right then. I was literally just talking about like the channel and how I think this is such a cool job because like whatever, I'm still able to pay my bills even if the income fluctuates. Fuck, man, I appreciate you so much, King Bugs. I wish I could heart that from here. Let me see. Can I go over to my channel and heart that? Let me heart it. I want to heart it. Can I heart it? Can I heart it? Am I able to do that? Can I heart it? Oh, I can heart it. Yes. I come back from a cutover at work and I come to the piss stream. What? Joey, I can't help it. I had to pee like a racehorse, okay? And I thought I walked far enough away from the trailer that people wouldn't hear me. And I peed, and apparently people heard me. And I don't even care because I have no shame. But, like, I'm a dirty kid, at a spirit level, I'm a dirty kid. I have shit on the side of a hotel. Like, literally, pulled my pants down, used the side of a hotel that had no cameras as the, like, prop to keep my fat ass up and separated from the ground, and delivered a Cincinnati steamer right onto the sidewalk of that hotel. And
I could do one just as good.
Okay, yeah, hit me with it. What are you doing?
This actually happened the last round of lid, so I was actually taking a couple treatments, but
Hold on, I can barely hear you now.
psychedelic. So, like, it was at the last spot I lived that I was at, and it's like a event with bike ride and shit. That happens. It was like a bigger, it was like a bigger event called. So that it was like basically a bunch of like bike ride events like this. Anyway, but at one point the psychedelic like oh shit I got like shit, hit me, and I was like, and I'm in my like husky onesie and everything, so I'm just like I have to like sit down and like unzip everything to like kind of like get myself secure, and one of my friends was like, yo, take this bag either to do it in or to just whatever, and I didn't figure to just do it in there, and I just like found like this weird like storage unit thing that was like by this river, by the river, on the waterfront, because we were like at the dock at this point, and I just ran up the dock like, oh no, I'm feeling it bubbling, the stomach is bubbling bad.
Yeah, I've been there.
At this point, yeah, and once I got up there, and I was able to hold it back enough, but oh no. Once I was able to like make sure that my onesie and everything was not fucked, and I was like, I can wrap it around me and hold on to that, pop that squat, like that, like you do like the chair, like kind of wrestling thing almost or whatever the fuck, like where you're doing like leg squats, up against a wall.
Yeah.
That type of shit, I was like, it was gnarly. I thought it was gonna be just like a regular solid thing, but it really was the exact opposite. And I looked at that, bit of paper bag, and I was like, this is not going to do it. It did, though. It actually did, but I was like, damn. It was insane. Because usually I have constipated shit. That was like the first time ever where it was just like, oh, hell no. The exact opposite. So,
yeah.
Drive right by the river, and also, like, there's, like, people everywhere, so I had to, like, find a one spot where hopefully no one's just seeing anything, and just hope for the best, and, have the Jesus take the wheel moment, because that literally is like what had to happen, honestly. I was like, there was literally nowhere for me to hide. I just had to find a spot that's at least somewhat obscure and just hope for the best. I know it looks over here.
That was basically what happened to me, because like I was so what happened was, this was at the very beginning of my traveling life. I actually have a picture I can show you guys of the very hotel that I shit on, and of me and my friends back then, because this was at the very beginning of my traveling life, and me and my road dog Adam had gone down to Oklahoma to pick up a couple of homies down there. One person that I had been talking to a little bit on Facebook and seemed really cool, and one person that Adam was like in a relationship with and everything. And these two people had been in a relationship themselves at one point, but were broken up by the time we went down there. And the plan was for us to all travel together till we got sick of each other, in my van. And, like basically distribute these like two dirty kids that needed our help back to the 5 winds. Because they were stuck in like small town fucking Oklahoma. Where it would have been incredibly difficult and time consuming for them to actually get out using typical dirty kid methods. They probably would have had to walk out, and it would have been like taking a Middle Earth style journey to walk out of the town that they were at. They would have literally had to like camp along the way and shit, bring enough supplies to make the journey, so that was the plan. And well, that's the thing. They were train hoppers, the both of them, at least to some degree. Both of them had hopped trains before, but they were like reticent to do that because, oh, here's the picture. I found it. Yeah, so I'm gonna show everybody, and then I'll send it in the DC. In the Discord, yeah.
Oh, hell yeah. I actually, because I'm kind of muted your stream, but I'm kind of looking out for the chat, but I see it there. That's fucking awesome. That's dope.
Yeah, and that wall we're sitting next to is the one I shit on. But I shit on it after that picture was taken.
Oh, yeah.
After that picture was taken, okay? After. But yeah, that was at the very beginning.
After, yeah, I figured.
Yeah, that was the very beginning of my traveling life. That picture was taken on March 23rd of 2021. At least according to my data on my phone. Anyway, what was I gonna say? What were we talking about? Oh, I remember now. I remember now. I remember now. I was talking about the context behind that picture. Right. So we went down to small town Oklahoma for that, and they had rented this little motel room after the two people we were picking up got out of the bad situation they were in. They had rented this motel room that they were living out of, and we got down there on basically like one of the last days before the hotel owner probably would have kicked them out anyway. But you know, like we stayed the night, and we stayed the night, and Adam and all, Adam and this other person, fuck it, I've said their name on stream before. Adam and Ollie, they took the fucking motel room, right? And me and this other friend, we'll call them Ren. Me and Ren took the van, right? And we like were fine in there, but around 2 a.m., the danger bubbles hit.
Oh no.
And when the danger bubbles hit, I didn't know, it wasn't actually 2 a.m. It was like a little bit earlier than that. It was like 10:30, 11 at night. And I didn't know, like, are they going to be in there fucking? Even if they're not, are they going to be in there naked? I don't know if I'm ready to see these people naked yet. And I was like, okay, so I've got nothing but dirty kid type decisions before me. I can either go into this decrepit old motel room that gave me the creeps when I went into it earlier, because they were kind of hoarders, honestly. Or at least one of them was. One of them definitely was not, and I didn't realize which one it was until we left the one who was not in Boulder, because she decided, you know, like that they were done with the whole situation. They weren't mad at me. We remained friends for many years after that, but I figured it was both their problem. No, it turns out it was kind of Ollie's little problem with holding on to things way longer than they needed to, which actually made their traveling life a lot more difficult, and was probably one of the reasons why they tried to, like, so long and so hard to stay with my van for so long, because I was just kind of like accommodating of all this junk. Looking back on it now, if I were to get back on the road now and somebody tried to like say, oh, I'm gonna put all this shit in, I'd be like, hell no, you're not. You need to pick like the things that are most vital, or figure somebody else out, because I'm not dedicating 2/3 of my van space to your junk, which is what I did.
Oh, absolutely, no shit.
Yeah, and I just imagine.
Like, 2/3 of that space is already gonna be your shit anyway. It's like, what? I don't even have space for this. Like, what the fuck?
Right. Well, that's the thing, is because like I packed light. That was one of the things that Adam had told me. It was like, you know, pack light, especially because you have a van. You'll be a lot better off than a lot of people, and you won't have to carry as much on your back, which means that you won't. You might not feel the need to like pack light, but you really should. Just only bring the things you need and things that you think you'll use regularly, and you know, let everything else up to the fates. And if you have to get something on the road, well, then you figured out a new need and you'll add that to the thing. But that was not the rules by which Ollie lived. Fucking they had all kinds of fucking shit, and it was just like a mess in that motel room. And I was like, dude, I've only got dirty kid decisions before me. I can either go shit somewhere outside, or I can like try and get into this motel room and possibly shit my pants. Thank you, King Bugs, for the $20. I appreciate that a ton. Thoroughly enjoying y'all's company tonight. Well, we're enjoying yours, King Bugs. But I was like, you know what, dude? I don't have any good decisions in this. Like, I don't have any good options here. I'm just gonna take the one that seems least egregious, which is I'm gonna find a private place to shit. Now, the problem was that this hotel property was fenced in for the most part. There was like an area where I could have gotten around the fence, but I would have had to walk all the way by the highway, pretty much. And I got the feeling, like looking around briefly on Google Maps, trying to figure out what to do, I was like, I would have to walk pretty far to go to a place where I would actually be, like, in the weeds and the bushes, so to speak. And even then, I could get snake bit and not have anybody to be able to help render me aid. I could get, like, abducted or something. I was way more paranoid at the beginning of my traveling journey, right? So I was like, fuck it, I'm just gonna fucking go to the back of this hotel where there are no cameras, and I'm just gonna use the wall as my lean-to, and I'm just gonna, you know... And it worked out. It worked out. I didn't get in trouble for it. We did get kicked out the next day, but that had more to do with Ollie and Adam, like, or probably Ollie more likely, blocking up the toilets than it had to do with like us. Oh, and it was us sleeping in the van. It was us staying in the van, and like, getting outside a few times and shit that made that happen. That made us get kicked out of there. But hey, you know what? It worked out. I didn't get in trouble for the shit, and they didn't get charged anything extra, so it was fine. I did just remember something else interesting that happened that same night too, though. Give me 1 second. Or you can talk for a minute.
Well, I'm just saying, like, it's actually kind of like a pretty wild story, honestly. Like, that's what I was going to say, like, with it being kicked out, I doubt it was a bit your shit. I mean, with the hoarding tendencies, too, like, it already sounded like that was probably going to be the case regardless. I mean, if you're hoarding and, at a hotel and shit, even if you're there for a short time, like, that's already kind of like a problem. It only makes sense a little bit if you're staying there long term, but as a hoarder, like, even then, that's a little less.
Well, they didn't know how long they were going to be staying, and so here's the thing. It was kind of excusable to a certain extent and kind of excusable to a non. So I've got a nuanced position about it. I don't feel like I'm an asshole about it. If I was in Ollie's position, I would have done things differently, but here...
Given the context of what I understand, you definitely are.
Yeah, and like my thing is, like, Ollie and Ren were in a very horrible situation. They had basically tried to get off the road when they were still together by moving in with this person who was kind of like this crazy old hippie lady that turned out to be more of like a fundy Christian than they realized. And she was basically keeping them as slaves, like making them do all kinds of shit around her property, basically for free, just giving them room and board, and making them do all kinds of shit. Well, yeah, but the thing is, like, she wouldn't let them go spange. She wouldn't let them go, like, make money of their own. It was basically the pandemic and the pandemic unemployment assistance program that finally enabled Ollie to, like, I don't actually know the timeline on that. I should hold back before I say that that's what enabled them to do it. I don't really know. At some point, that relationship broke down and they decided, fuck it. I think Ollie was getting that PUA before, because, like I said, it was like March 2021 when we got them, and PUA had been around for like 7 or 8 months by that time. And I think that Ollie had gotten that PUA, and that they had decided that, like, with this income, we should be able to find a place like this where we can just, it's common in Dirty Kids, the like culture, to find arrangements like this, where you've got a farmer or a country person who needs a lot of work done around their property, and they're kind of poor, so they can't really pay you, but they'll let you go work and do stuff for other people, and you can do stuff around their property, and in exchange, you'll get, a place to sleep every night that's secure, and you can get food and stuff like that, right? Common arrangement. And their idea was, well, we're going to use this income in combination with this arrangement so that we can actually, like, get ahead. And part of that arrangement was even supposed to be them being able to build their own little house out there and shit. Well, that shit fell through. She ended up basically treating them like slaves, effectively, would not let them go spange or do any of the things that would allow them to actually start saving money. And so eventually they were like, fuck it, we're just going to take this PUA and start from scratch, basically. Take all of our shit down the hill, out of this fucking holler, and into town proper, and we'll just stay at a motel room and find a ride, basically. And so basically we were rescuing them from a horrible situation. They didn't really have anybody else in that area. Nobody else was, like, offering rides that were, like, compatible with their situation. And we ended up, being, like, it just worked out perfectly. And I think in that situation...
Like a leap of faith almost.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely was. I think everybody involved's part, really. But that's how a lot of Dirty Kid life works, honestly. That's one of the reasons why so many people, I say kids, but so many people come out of that culture, or, eventually end up in that culture with some kind of belief in, if not God, then, like, some kind of karma or universal favor or something, Like, almost all of us come up with some kind of personal mythology. Well, almost all of us come up with some kind of personal mythology to make sense out of the way that, for some reason, in regular society, neighborly culture and people like leaps of faith like that don't tend to work out really well, right? But for some reason, in dirty kid culture, life is kind of predicated on that, on people coming through for other people in the community, on people being ingenious and helping other people find solutions and shit. And so I think a lot of people, to cope with the mismatch between broader society and their personal lives, they come up with these weird personal mythologies to justify it. I have even engaged in a little bit of that myself. But the point is that um, oh fuck, what was I about to say? Um, uh, yeah, no, it was definitely a leap of faith on all of our parts.
Of like how with the dirty kid culture, what
I'll remember in a second. I need to hit my bowl.
little bowl reminder.
But I remember what thread I was on. If I was in Ollie's position with the hoarding thing, because I don't think it really started necessarily as hoarding. I think it kind of became hoarding once they went from being settled down and having place to put the stuff to not really having a place to put a lot of the stuff, and yet still trying to hold on to it, and then still trying to kind of have that same like, oh, I can still have stuff even though I don't really have much of a space for it kind of attitude. And if I was in that position, I would have, as soon as I got to the motel, I would have started going online and getting a hold of, going on Reddit and any kind of buy sell trade group on Facebook, anything else, trying to sell as much of the stuff that they had as possible. Even if it doesn't end up bringing much, just try and fucking sell as much of it off as you possibly fucking can stand apart with, and then travel with that reduced amount.
For free if you have to, if it does free.
Yeah, exactly. Give it away to some people who are needy.
Maybe.
Huh?
Or I'm saying like free or willing to trade, like, for something that maybe potentially have like a console, but you need like a car jack,
Yeah.
Need one, but they kind of need a new console. Little trades like that,
Exactly.
Some people really, will do shit like that. I've had that happen before, and I've done it a couple times. Maybe not into that exact thing, but sometimes a good trade works better than just having to like just sell something off because you get something more valuable, in a way.
Yeah, I agree. But what I would have done though is after I sold all that off or traded it off or gave it away or whatever, I would have then traveled with that lesser amount of stuff and started, like, I think it naturally would have occurred to most people, oh my god, some of this stuff is just holding me down, and I would have like tried to, every time I went through a backpack or did something like that, I'd be like, is this really necessary? Does this bring joy? No, this does not bring joy. And then I, would just discard it. But I like, that's not the fucking attitude that Ollie took. And I gotta say, until literally like pretty much the like end of our time traveling together, that little merry crew, most of my van was filled up with their stuff. Fucking wild. And that is a mistake I simply would not make if I were to ever get back on the road again. I indica lull. What now?
Well, I'm saying I won't blame it because, even I think about that sometimes because I always think about traveling and shit, but I got a lot of stuff too my own way. And it's like, I gotta, like, if I were to do that, I would have to part with a lot of things or at least have a way to store it or keep it somewhere where I know it'll be alright.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, I mean,
because I have a little more privilege in that level, I suppose, in that regard, probably, but, not everyone does, and it's like,
yeah.
But, there is a level where it's like, you gotta make certain sacrifices if that is a part of the journey of your life that you're gonna try to do, like, regardless if it's like you have no other choice, or you just want to explore it because you want to go check out the world, or whatever, like, however it is, like, you know, you gotta, like, you know, make those sacrifices,
Yeah.
you know, and not have everything with you when you do it.
Dude, it's something you said just crystallized in my head. A thought I've always had, but I guess I don't say it much on stream. You know, we talk about implementing these social programs and these safety nets to help make it so that people don't become homeless and everything. But something that almost never gets said by either liberal or leftist is maybe we just need to accommodate the existence of fucking homeless people. Like, maybe that just needs to be part of the fucking solution, guys. Like, because I genuinely believe, I was doing some research into this the other day. You know, around 45% of disabled people have some kind of chronic disability or something like that.
I didn't know that, but I mean, that makes sense with some of the things, especially even my own anecdotal experience, you know, people that are like that.
Right.
I'm not too surprised, honestly.
Well, so yeah, like, so a little less than a majority of homeless people have some kind of chronic disability or chronic illness. A lot of these, many of these, like, diseases and illnesses, there are tons of things that people will get or develop or have from birth or whatever that can make it really difficult for a person to live with other people or even live on their own in the, like, typical way that people are supposed to in traditional society and everything. And having experienced homelessness and traveler culture and everything, I would argue that, like, yes, there do need to be systems in place to prevent people from becoming homeless. There needs to be ways for people to get out of it, and we need to obviously improve the conditions of the working class and the amount of support that is provided to disabled people in general. But we also need to admit and accept that there are some people who are never quite going to be able to fit in to broader society, no matter how well it's structured or how many incentive structures you put in place. I think there will always be some people who want to be nomadic on some level. I think there will always be some people who prefer living outside or living more dangerously or whatever. And I don't know that any amount of policy, especially in America, can ameliorate that. Maybe it would cease to be an issue after we had good social programs for like 100 years. But I think in the meantime, we need to just admit and accept that these people exist, that they're around, and that their existence is just as valid as any other human being's existence. And that whether it's directly related to the inherent problems of capitalism and poverty, or a thing that is an expression of a drive inside them, I think that these people need to be provided some baseline of support by society. I think that there needs to be a legal framework in every city in America, maybe even a federal framework, by which people are like allowed to give food to homeless people, right? Where people are allowed to set aside a certain chunk of their land for people to use if they need a place to fucking set up shelters that are not going to, like, I don't know, man. It seems to me like all the fucking policies people propose that seek to fix this, all of them still end up leaving some people untouched and unaccounted for. And I feel like at a certain point you need to accept that the problem is there and start remedying, like providing like a baseline of resource access and legal framework.
Like the consequences of it when, you know, it isn't actually properly addressed. Because I think it's one thing I also want to ask, like, sometimes there's even people that are kind of the polar opposite who just rather just chill at home and just kind of, you know, maybe not like agoraphorbically kind of stuff, but it was just like, just do their own thing and not work and just, you know, and just like have, you know, their broader UBI or disability and shit. Because I actually know a pretty close friend of myself, you know, that's kind of like that bit, and I'm like, I mean, yeah, because he's not like, you know, one of those ones that would want to like travel or be dirty kid status, but it's kind of, I would see it as a similar boat from what you were, you know, just saying, because like, I mean, you know, like, because he's kind of the same metric, just in a way kind of opposite of, you know, the broader, like, travel dirty kid stuff. You know, instead of Virginia, it's just kind of a isolated little dirty kid just wanting to play video games, you know, kind of stuff. Which, hey, that's all good and stuff. And you know, hey, if that's what people want to do, I'd rather that, you know, than just being fucked off, you know, whether by society, governmentally, or otherwise, you know, and shit. Because at least, you know, they're still being a being, and also, you know, still existing, you know. It's like, I mean, it's not like they, you know, don't isolate themselves or anything entirely. I mean, if anything, you know, they probably would be more encouraged to do so when there's more infrastructure and more, you know, benefits and at least upliftment, you know, for them when it comes to shit like that. They'd probably be more proactive on being more social and be more out and proactive in society.
Yeah.
Instead, like, you know, what we're doing now is isolating them further, you know, regardless of, like, whether they want to just, like, isolate entirely or take a leap of faith and, you know, kind of hobo themselves out, whatever. Like, either way, it's, like, it's still, like, it's not the problem of the people doing this type of shit. It's the problem of the system that is enabling that kind of issue, which, you know...
I think it's not even... I think the problem is what's enabling that, but I think also that the problem is that, like, society... Like, capitalist society is built both to enable that and to demonize it. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. It's like the hypocrisy of capitalism in a lot of ways. I don't talk about it a lot, but I do kind of bring it up in its own way, you know, but, yeah, I'm familiar with it.
Right, so the idea is that, like, capitalism kind of, you know, causes the disease and then sells you the cure, right? So, when it comes to homelessness, capitalism creates the conditions that, in many cases, make it difficult for someone to keep on living the way they're, like, supposed to live according to the mores of society. It does this through rent-seeking behavior, through the maintenance of low wages, the lobbying of the government for pro-business policies, etc. And slowly but surely, it creates more and more of this problem. And that's seen as kind of a feature by the people that are in the know of the capitalist system, because ultimately, those people serve as a reminder in the minds of the billionaires. It serves as a reminder to the rest of the working class. This is what happens if you don't work for us. This is what happens if you don't make us rich. This is the people who aren't making us rich. And, you know, in so doing, it creates both the problem and the demonization. The rent-seeking behavior, the profit-minded activity of capitalism creates big, massive holes through which people fall. And because it needs to keep everybody else in line and to keep an incentive to keep everybody clinging tightly to the ropes, it also, you know, demonizes that same group of people that exist explicitly because the system is such that there are really, like, very few other options.
Very isolated options as well.
Yeah, and if you happen to be, you know, if you happen to become homeless in an area that's just got no, like, resources for homeless people, there are people that become homeless and just end up staying that way their whole lives because they never find a way out of their tiny little town. They don't even know where else to go. Sometimes they're afraid to even leave. But they don't have any family there left anymore. They don't have anywhere they can get a job because they're, you know, too fucking stinky and don't have an address and all this. And, like, what do you do in a situation like that? And there's people that will end up staying homeless for multiple decades. There are families that grow up.
Connect with some really sketchy people and some maybe sketchy businesses too.
Huh?
Like, I have a buddy that, well, I'm saying, like, maybe even connect with really sketchy people and sketchy businesses as well, because, like, I have a friend that is, like, rooming in a kind of questionably tweaker kind of environment as kind of thing, Mostly
Yeah.
because he kind of grew up around a lot of shit, so I guess maybe in a way it's like familiar to him, but I mean, also the job that he got, like he didn't have the social security card and, you know, shit, but he had at least a couple things that he needed, but he still got the job anyway, and it's like being weirdly under the table for most of that job, like, so it's like, it's just, like, because sometimes that, like, you can kind of maybe weirdly get like you with some shit like that occasionally, but that, it just kind of varies, at least from my anecdotal experience from what I've seen, but Portland is a little different, I guess, like that, because, I mean, even for me, like, I mean, I'm still, like, getting my, SSD and other shit replaced, and luckily, because I have a passport, I overrid everything when I got my job, so I was like, yes! Because sometimes, I mean, certain, lucks can happen, but, it's, if not, if you don't have, like, the certain type of things that are around you, then it's very limited and really difficult, to be able to get those opportunities. And so many people are legitimately priced out, because, like, I know for a fact it costs money, in a lot of states, a lot of money, even, and costs even, like, tens of some dollars, maybe even like 100, depending on which state, like to get an ID. That's fucking insane. Like, I mean, that's pricing out so many different people, especially those who are homeless. They aren't able to, like, get some basic thing that is seen as a necessity. It's like, that should just be free at the point of service. Like, it's a fucking idea. Like, everyone deserves to have one. But, like, why price people out of it, Like, that's just one example. I have so many different things when it comes to that type of shit.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I don't blame you. Sorry, I was just reading the chat for a second. I was trying to figure out where they're at and what they're saying. I couldn't make no sense of it, one way or another.
No, you're good. I was reading some of it earlier a little bit. I noticed that somebody said that, like, Ignat's voice is so calming. I just still sitting here with a shaking grin. I'm not gonna lie, I'm like...
You're like, oh, I got a calming voice. Nice. Well, do you mind entertaining the people for a minute while I go pee again?
Yeah, you're all good.
For the millionth time.
Right now, so I'm just literally waiting for my laundry to dry right now.
Laundry!
I'm gonna do a little quick stream, so I have no idea how long pizza's gonna be going on for, but I can at least, chill around till my lunch done, then do my thing, and maybe have a little bowl of epic feast. I'm thinking about, like, doing this, like, sausage and, like, chorizo, like, mixed thing, and then from there, I'm gonna, like, get, like, this Alfredo, like, Parmesan kind of Alfredo sauce thing going on with it. I don't know what pasta to use. Actually, I didn't even see what pasta rasta that we got going on. It's probably got, like, spaghetti, we probably got rigatoni. I'm sure we got some different pastas, but I need to double check and make sure a little bit, you know what I mean? Like, but we'll figure it out. I pretty much have everything ready to go. I just waiting and put, like, a hot bowl of water for some of the sausage because it needs to thaw a little bit, and that's a pretty good way to let do its thing and chill.
Kitty!
I'm just killing time. It was either this or just, like, rewatch some DFF, from the other day. And then after that, a little bit of the VP show that Phoebe was a part of. Because I've been meaning to watch that.
Yeah, you gotta watch it. It's real good. It's very good. Yeah, I wonder if that episode's gotten more comments since the last time I looked at it. Let's see here. Drunken Peasants. Let's see, what episode was it? Let's see here. Oh, it was 1685. It was 1685. 3.3 thousand views. Let's see here. So, we've got, listening to Keith and Phoebe talking the shit was great. Meanwhile, Ben eating chips and wrestling the bag, directly into the mic. Yep. Hell yeah. Righteous. Then we got a...
he mentioned, like, he popped in once being like, yo, he's doing like a Brett Keenan First Station karaoke of a song of some sort. I was like, what? I was like, wait, what? Where is his, like, DP? I was like, huh? That's when I first knew about it. I was like, oh, wait, what? And then I saw a notification literally, like, a few minutes after he said that. I'm like, oh, the after party stream. But I'm streaming. God damn it. Like, shit. I gotta figure that one out now and check all that shit out.
Yeah, dude. Sorry, I was just reading through the comments. I'm so well received. They love me. The people love me.
Hell yeah.
That makes me happy. That makes me really happy.
Feel that ego. Build it up. Man, if it wasn't so goddamn late, I kind of would literally, like, kind of bust a tune out. No lie. I just wish it wouldn't be so, unfortunate. You know, with the people, you know, to be able to hear that. But not like it would happen, though.
Yeah. Dude.
I've been feeling very musical lately, though. I've been in a mood. I'm just like,
One of my...
But acoustics can't really play much right now.
One of my favorite, YouTube cooks is apparently doing something with the Food Network. Jose El Cook.
Oh, I think I know who that is.
Little bit of that ocean.
A little bit of that ocean.
Little bit of that ocean. Yep.
Yeah.
It's the Hispanic guy that looks like
Such an awesome dude.
he reminds me of that one dude. Oh fuck, what is his name?
He does a little bit. Oh, you know, speaking of like some of these like YouTube content creators, you know, like the Dano guy.
Yeah.
Well, back when I used to work at Safeway, apparently he like was released. This is when he kind of established his company with the Dano seasonings and shit. Like, apparently he was doing like little local tours around the U.S. You know, with some stores, you know, to show off his brand and stuff. When he finally released it out, you know, for shops to sell. And my store happened to be one of them. And I showed up to work with everyone being like. And I was like looking at all this Danos display shit. I immediately recognized and be like, oh shit, look at all this. And I asked some of the PICs to be like, what's with all that? And he's like, yo, you showed up today at like noon or something. I was like, what? I missed him. I was like, I kind of low-key want to meet that guy. I was like, that was kind of cool as fuck. But like, what the fuck? I was like, damn.
Yeah.
It was really about like 2 hours because I was just like, I'm just waking up doing my shift or something. I think I needed more stream because I do remember waking up around the time I could probably met his ass. I was like, fuck. Missed opportunity, but that would be cool as fuck though.
Thank you, Nanbot, for the 5 gifted memberships, by the way.
Oh, that's beautiful too. I was looking at that bomb of memberships and all that. It was just beautiful.
Absolutely beautiful. We love to see it.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. But yeah, I think at the day, like, he was just really, like, touring around, you know, Portland for the most part, you know, just doing, you know, like, little, like, PR stuff a little bit, like, but I was still a little buttered that I missed it, though. I was just like, God damn, it would've been so cool.
Yeah, I feel you. Yeah. Are you, Ignar? Seattle meetup, yay or nay?
Oh, they actually officially have a Seattle meetup going on?
Motherfucker, you don't watch nothing, do you?
I knew they were doing some meetups. I didn't realize the Seattle was on the roster. Wait, oh my god. Alright, yes, I gotta do it. Alright, yeah, that's happening.
You been under a rock for a week or what? Did you? Let me ask you this.
Well, I've been working so much, like dead ass. Like I have not much time to try to catch up. When
okay. Yeah, you've been working hard. Like, did you know that we're back at war with Israel or Iran?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I've been catching up with some of the news, enough, but...
Righteous.
Especially that shit, I'm wow.
Yeah, you always keep informed.
Unfortunately, but I'm just like, motherfucker.
But, no, yeah, dude. So they announced Seattle. It's going to be December 5th is the tentative date that they announced. So it gives us plenty of time to prepare. And if you're going, Ignar, if you're going, I'll go.
Oh, fuck. Low-key, though, that's also around the time that I'm wanting to try to see Rush in Vancouver, British Columbia, which I think is the 12th of December. Oh, my God.
Have you been...
That might be... oh, shit. It's not tentative yet with that December trip with Rush, but I've been wanting to see them so bad. So I'm just like, oh, shit. I might actually have to stay up for that. Oh, double dip that shit? Oh, shit. I actually might need to.
Yeah. Well... I'm gonna start fundraising for my ticket to go down there and everything as soon as I figure out how much it's gonna cost for me to go out there. So I'm gonna have to figure out lodging and shit. I need to text Glitch Dash and see if he's still around, if he still wants to go to the next meetup, if he's still interested in us driving together. Because if he is, hey, that's awesome. But if he's not, then I'm either gonna need to. Well, even if he is, I'm going to need to save up for gas money. But even if he's not, I would still need to save up for either... You know what? I bet I could take the train. Let me see here. Let me look at the Amtrak route. And I...
Well, no, for me, for sure, I was probably going to take the train up to Seattle if I was going to go up there anyway.
Right. Which makes sense. I mean, of course, you live in a pretty big city. But... I would have to have someone. I would have to have someone like. I would have to have someone like drop me off at the nearest train station to me, but that might be easier than some of the other options. So I'm just gonna look here. Let's see here.
So maybe you could have like a little weekend in Portland before we go out there, because I mean, depending on everything, there's a possibility that we can actually really just lodge with me and my friend, for a little bit, and then I'll take the train up there and shit. Like that could be a legit possibility. I'll have to talk to my roommate about it, but I don't know. I mean, that actually could be a possibility, actually.
Maybe.
Because it would make it easier. Yeah. Ooh. We are cooking.
Damn it! I want this PDF to load. Why won't this PDF load? I'm so mad. Oh my god, why isn't it fucking working, dude? Bruh. What is that sound?
Is there a sound?
Yeah, like ding 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 ding.
I actually have no idea. Oh, it might be me because I'm also looking up tickets. Wait, why is this on vibrate? Get this shit off vibrate. I'm off phone.
That was probably what I was hearing. I was like, what am I hearing? Sounded like fucking Morse code or something. I was like, is the CIA trying to fucking intercept this broadcast? Okay, so I definitely could take the train. Let me see here. I'd have to take the city of New Orleans down to, well, New Orleans, and then take the Sunset Limited to LA. Sorry, I'm kind of waiting for the train to pass before I do more commentary. I can't hear you. I'm sorry. That's why I'm kind of waiting for the train, because this one's a really loud one and I can barely hear anything. Okay, neat. Okay, so here's what I was reading, basically. I could basically take the train from Memphis down to, words. Down to, down to Nowlands. And then take Sunset Limited all the way out to, I guess it'd be LA. And then take a different train north all the way to Seattle. Seattle. Yeah. Seattle. Good old Seattle. And I'm going to mispronounce it the whole time I'm there. I'm going to be insufferable. So, yeah. Let's see here. What? Riding on the city of New Orleans, on the way to the fucking DFF meetup. 15 cars and 15 restless riders. 3 conductors, 25 tracks of mail. On and lonely now, hard to see. Train pulls out a Kankakee, rolls around houses, palms, and wheels. Let's see here. Round trip from Memphis. Memphis, Tennessee to Seattle, Washington. Why is this taking so long? I don't know. One traveler, yes. Depart date would be on. It would be on. Probably on Thursday, December 3rd. Okay? Alright. I've selected it. And they would return probably on the 7th. Find trains. Cannabis in USA changed when Russia invaded Afghanistan as Americans brought back skunk buds instead of just hash, which bred indica and sativa. Ooh. Is that true? I wonder if that's actually true. James said that in the chat. It kind of sounds like it might be true, but I don't know. Oh, let's see. Coach from 241. Business from 304. Private rooms from... Do you want to guess how much a private room, if I wanted to do this, costs?
How much?
No, I mean guess.
180.
No, for private rooms. Coach was 241. Business was 304. We're talking private rooms. And it's the best ticket you can get.
Oh, oh shit. Don't be way more. 550.
What'd you say?
550.
Nope, $1,700.
Oh, damn, I wasn't even like halfway near the ballpark.
$1,700. 17 damn ass dollars. 17 crazy ass dollar.
Do you happen to know the venue in Seattle? Because I'm trying to narrow it down to find out where the fuck I can find a damn ticket.
Do what? No, I don't think the tickets have been announced yet. They've just announced the tentative date and that it's going to happen, but they don't have tickets on sale yet.
God damn it, okay, well. That's why
Sorry.
I Google like a retard.
Sorry.
Nah, you're good.
I gotta change my shit, cause the date I put in, it would have me arriving after the damn meetup, so that ain't no fucking good. What the hell, dude? Am I just retarded? Am I stupid? I'm probably just stupid.
No, the kids just don't want to be the way they are because our train system is fucked.
Maybe what I'm asking for is not possible. Huh?
I'm saying this is why we need Chinese bird chains, folks. We need that magnetic speech.
Yep, we need maglevs, folks. We need maglevs now, people. The Democrats in Congress don't want to support the Trump maglev.
Oh man, if only.
I know, right?
They're fucking old.
I just want to bring reliable transportation to the people. Want to upgrade our old shitty trains. Gonna have better trains. Better than those Chinese trains. We bought them from the Chinese, but we had to make them better.
It'll be the best that the world has ever seen, folks. Let me just tell you.
They're built by the Chinese, but they're better than what the Chinese got. Don't know how they did that. Real miracle workers over there, folks.
Oh shit, I forgot I was holding off to this one. I said something through I think it's through that little like chat thing or whatever the fuck that we get, you know, if it went through, I think. I hope it did. Because I found out like a couple days ago, because I had a little hair in my ass, I just looked up my name, Ignorowski, on Google. And one of the summary results was, you know, from when I was doing protesting at one No Kings protest, and there was actually like 2 Oregon, you know, public broadcasting articles from that. And I was just like, what? I was like, wait, what? This picture me and shit?
Yeah.
It took a minute for me to remember what it was, but because I remember it now, like there was photographer for, you know, an outlet. I didn't realize it was OPB, but I was just like, you know, he was asking, like, hey, I'm kind of like your aura, basically, and I like your aesthetic, like, can I take some pictures? And I was like, I don't give a fuck, yeah, go for it. And then, you know, he asked, like, hey, you got, like, a name or anything to go by? And I was like, Ignorowski, you know, IGNER, you know, just that was my public internet handle. And honestly, all these months, I didn't realize that, you know, he was a photographer for the outlet, you know, for OPB, and I had a picture of me out there. I was like, oh shit.
Yeah, no doubt. Hell yeah.
Good me getting out here a little famous.
That's dope.
I don't even realize it. I still got like 15 fucking minutes until the dryer's done with this damn thing. I mean, like community laundries, because I kind of like it because I have an app that reminds me and shit. You know, if I'm just like, bruh, why does it take so fucking long? Why must it take forever?
Sorry, I'm just like looking at this. And I'm like, what the fuck? What the fuck? Hearts arrives. And then what? Man. Okay, alright, yeah. So train is probably not gonna work. Maybe it would, but I would have to fucking... it would be like a week-long train trip. It would basically be like most of my time would be spent on the train. Because of how bad our fucking rail network is in this fucking stupid-ass country. If there was more direct routes, then it wouldn't be such a big deal, but...
Well, fuck with the oil crisis and shit that we have now, that probably, I don't know, like, maybe that might be somewhat cheaper, who knows, bit ball here, you know, got some so.
Well, my thing is, like, if I wanted to, I could take a bus, you know, like, a bus could also probably get me up there with what I want to take with me, and, it'd probably be fine. And there'd definitely be more direct bus routes that wouldn't take as much time. And yeah, I would have to get some kind of lodging while I was up there anyway, but, regardless of what I did for that, you know, like, I can make everything work. If I can get to within an hour and a half of a place, I can make the rest work. But, you know, getting across the country, that's where it's expensive and kind of a hurdle. So, you know.
Yeah, that's like its whole quest in itself, yeah.
Right, because, I mean, there's part of me that wants to be like, fuck it, I'll just dirty kid my way up there. I'll just fucking arrange for somebody to pick me up that's heading that way, and I'll just fucking get my way out there. But then there's another part of me that's like, girl, that's stupid. You're just gonna get like kidnapped and raped or something. Like that's not the way to do it. You know, like even though I've lived that life, I never had to hitchhike and I never had to like get rides from others. I was always the one providing the ride, so I'm like, scary. Um, so I don't know. I don't want to like leave it to the fates and not be prepared. So I want to like have a plan, you know. And it seems to me like it's either gonna be setting up a thing where my ex takes the kiddo for like 2 weeks rather than the regular one, and where I'm able to just take an extraordinarily long, absurdly long train trip all the way up there or to wherever I end up getting lodged at, right? Or I could take a bus, and that's probably going to be a lot shorter, but a lot seedier. Or I could fly, which is going to probably not be all that seedy and probably not be all that, you know, like slow. It's obviously going to be the fastest of the options, but I've never flown before, and I'm kind of terrified of it.
I mean, I will say, like, I mean, for me personally, I've kind of done it growing up for a lot of my life, and I don't know, like, it's not as bad as you think. Like, I mean, obviously, maintenance and everything permitted, like, I mean, aircraft are really meant to sustain even, like, 10 times more than the average, like, turbulence forces, you know, on Earth, you know, kind of shit. Like, I mean, they're meant to kind of be sturdy, you know, machines. So, I mean, despite, like, a lot of the problems of aviation, especially with my grievances, because I'm a little bit of an aviation nut myself personally, I like to kind of tune into a little bit of that news when it comes to that shit specifically, and, I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I'm not...
It's not as bad as you think. I mean, a lot of it is really just like to take off and landing shit. Once you're in the air and you're just chilling, it's actually nice, you know, pretty smooth. The only time it ends up being bad is weather permitting, you know, because then you might hit turbulence, and that sometimes can be a little spooky, you know, especially if you've never felt it before, you know, but overall, it's not bad. I mean, I'm a little biased, I will admit, but, I mean, because I'm a real aviation nerd, you know, when it comes to that type of shit, but I always try to reassure that, you know, it really isn't as bad as people think it is.
Yeah, and, you know, like, I think that that's fair. I think that that's fair. I'm not saying it's a rational fear, okay? It is clearly an irrational fear of mine that I'm gonna get in some plane and it's just gonna...
one too, though, because I have plenty of friends of myself that are very afraid of flying, and I don't blame them.
Yeah, I don't... I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. Plus, you know what? I feel like all of the interesting things about going from one place to another, they all happen on the ground, man. Like, a plane is boring. There's my defense of it.
I don't know. Here's my little quick deal on this one real quick, because, like, it's like, a lot of times I always have a window seat when this happens, so I will always be able to just look outside and just see everything below me. And I will say, having that bird's eye view and being able to look down and really see how, like, big but also small, you know, things really are, especially, you know, on a same level on the ground, like, kind of realizing that kind of perspective of view when you're, like, 20-something thousand feet up in the air and you just kind of look over, just chilling, and you're like, whoa. You can still, like, even see the cars and everything going on with infrastructure and traffic. Like, I've always been able to kind of, you know, eyeball that shit, look down, and be like, wow, it looks really, like, big, but also it's, like, so small, you know, at the same time, you know, especially with such a high bird's eye view, seeing everything. And it's just like, it has its own way of perspective, you know, to kind of, like, you know, take it back by, you know, in a little bit.
Yeah.
Again, like, because I've flown so many times, you know, where, you know, like, I've been able to kind of appreciate that particular perspective. It's kind of, you know, and I know that not everyone's flown. It's just kind of a unique idea about looking at the world, you know, in its own way, you know. I mean, at least, you know, to an extent. I mean, obviously it won't take away, you know, looking on the ground and seeing the mountains as they slowly pass by on the highway and shit like that. I mean, nothing will take away that type of shit, you know, no matter what. It's
Well, you know,
really cool to sometimes also look at the mountain while you're, like, slowly flying by and be like, damn, look how big that fucking shit is.
You know how
like,
you know what they say about that view from an airplane. The smaller the buildings look, the more resounding your splat when you land on the fucking ground on a fucking field after an engine failure.
well, luckily, most of these aircraft are actually able to fly on one engine. Like, they're...
Whatever, Ignar. It's gonna happen because I'm there, okay? Fucking multiple engine failure.
Oh my god. Hey, that's why I have to try to reinsure, right? Because, like, it really... Like, there's been plenty of times where there'll be, like, a compression failure on the engine where it'll kind of, like, do, like, these little engine...
Plenty of times?
Kind of thing.
Oh my god, I'm never flying. Plenty of times?
Fine on one engine.
Yeah, well, a fucking car can drive for a little while on fucking 3 wheels, but that doesn't mean it's a good idea.
Hey, I'm just saying, like, it's not as dangerous as you really... I mean, it's statistically...
Scary.
Despite everything going on, like, when it comes to aviation shit, like, it really statistically, it is actually safer and you're less likely to die. Like, I guarantee you, right? You're gonna be Gucci. You're gonna be fine.
I got 2 arguments for you. Spooky, scary.
Wait, what?
Spooky, scary.
Spooky, scaly?
Yep. Spooky, scary. Don't like it.
I'm not high enough for this yet.
Don't like it. Spooky, scary. Don't like it. There are probably skeletons in that plane.
Yeah. I've flown so many times. Dude, I remember one time where I actually even flew a plane myself, when I probably should have at, like...
I can't fly. I can't fly because Pat Robertson told me the plane is infested with demons.
Was that also not? Was that No, it wasn't. Well, probably him too. But what was the other guy too that also literally looks like a demon?
Joel Osteen. He also told me that the planes are full of demons.
Well, he wasn't the one I was thinking of. What's Kenneth Copeland?
Yeah. He tells me that the planes are full of demons too. Sorry, planes full of demons, can't fly. Okay, I can't keep it up anymore.
Yeah, when I have my own aircraft, then you know what? There won't be no demons, and at least if there is, it'll be ones you appreciate.
I couldn't keep it up anymore.
No, you're good. I love it. See you.
Oh shit. It's getting real late. Oh.
At least it says I have about like 5-ish minutes until my dryer's over, so I'm like, hey, that means I could do a little cook stream. Maybe I can migrate a couple people over to where we all feast.
Yeah.
Maybe I can convince some people to have some late night munchies.
Yeah. No joke. Oh.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh. I have a funeral to go to tomorrow.
Oh shit, really? Damn.
Yeah. I don't know if you saw the post on my community tab, but my grandma passed away.
Wow, shit, my condolences.
It's all good. I'm glad she didn't, like, suffer forever. You know, like, in some people's case it happens, and it's just horrible for people to have to go through that. So I'm glad that her decline happened relatively quick, and that it was not a long, drawn-out process for her to pass. But I guess it's just starting to, you know, dawn on me more clearly now that it's getting closer.
I get you.
James in the chat was saying, I've done my fair share of hitching, but them days is over. I kind of feel that, James. Even though I never did hitching, I kind of like have known enough people that have to know that it's not exactly the best way to get around the U.S. You know, like if you have other options, you should take them. So, but yeah. No, that's all good, James. Like I said, I'm just glad she didn't suffer for like an excruciatingly long time with like old age and the decline of a body after that long. And you know, she lived the vast majority of her life in pretty good health and pretty aware of what was going on. And it's not like she spent 10 years with dementia or anything, which is a relief to me.
Yeah, I had a grandma, kind of in a similar boat like that as well. For her, it was because of skin cancer, but she still, despite all that, lived a very fruitful, very experienced life. She, would tell me stories sometimes about how she worked, this little tiny shop out, just outside of Billings, Montana. Well, actually, North Dakota somewhere. I forgot exactly where it was. But, just some little bodunk town where a family owned, a little grocery shop, and at the age of 11 and 12, she would, as a kid, run that shop, and actually get money and stuff, help clean it up, even, working the till and shit. I had a very long, fruitful experience life despite all that. I mean, she wasn't a grandma I knew that much because she was technically a step-grandma, but one that was there for more of my life than my biological one, unfortunately, just because my biological one had a heart clot that, made her pass, by the time I was starting to, have memories and shit, way early in my life, 4 or 5, so
Yeah.
I remember her, to an extent, but just wasn't there in my life as much as, she could have, unfortunately, but, at least, Betty was her name, so my step-grandma was at least around there a lot, and a lot of things she told me on how she operated her life, I will say, she definitely, I could tell in her youth was way more of a fucking wild card, I could tell.
Yeah.
I can understand why my granddad married her, and, stuck with her for so long, with all that type of shit, because, it seems like my granddad always kind of liked that a little bit. He's always been kind of that type of character.
Yeah.
Because he's been a wild card himself. There's a lot of insane stories of him that I won't necessarily get into now, but maybe for another time, because I've heard some insane, crazy stories from that motherfucker.
I have no doubt. Oh. Yeah. No, I mean, I just hope that I just hope that my mom lives long enough for my kid to have good memories of her and for her to be more of an influence on his life and stuff, because I've seen so few grandmas just be as enamored with their grandkid as my mom is, and it's just so beautiful to see, and it's kind of rare for a human being to encounter that kind of unequivocal, just unconditional love. And she's just so good at showing it. And too, I guess it's the way she raised me, she was very much that way when I was a kid. She was always I guess you could say my greatest champion or whatever. She was always on my side, trying to fight the schools to make them work with my IEP and shit, and trying to get accountability out of them and stuff, trying to make sure that I got all the therapies and treatments that I needed. And I don't know if I would be the kind, compassionate, empathetic person I am today if it hadn't been for the influence of my mom, who just had this, despite being as edgy as she was. And I hope that I bring the same energy, but despite as edgy as she was and everything else, she was still she operated in such a way that it was clear, and it continues to operate in a way that's clear. Like, she's got a super deep well of empathy and a pretty deep well of love for the human species and other people. And that kind of love is rare, you know. That kind of person is rare, and I think she'd be cool to have as a grandma. And I guess I'm just sitting here thinking, man, I hope, you know. Anyway,
I was about to say, because I don't want to get too deep because I have my own.
yeah, no, I've been streaming for 4 hours. I've been streaming for 4 hours, so I went way longer than I meant to. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and get off here. Yeah, no, for sure. Thanks. I appreciate it.
Well, yeah, I need to get down my lunch anyway, and I'll do a little baby cooking stream where we're just chilling and whipping some food.
Alrighty. Yeah, go check out Ignar's stream. Yeah. Yeah, good shit. Have a good night.
And much luck with the chat as well.
Much love. Alrighty. Well, now we're out of there. And sadly, you guys, I'm not gonna lie to you, Chief. This stream pretty much done. This stream pretty much done. Anyway, much love, y'all. I appreciate you guys hanging out. I'm gonna enjoy some rest, yes, as James said, and I'm gonna go get me some food. So peace. Thank you guys for hanging out. Later.